Hello everyone, welcome to FPL BlackBox. We're going to be playing a nice little game today. It's going to be called the every time James says something inappropriate or swears, you have to drink. I think, James, you might have just called Suj a prat even before I said hello. So it's an even more impressive start to the stream.
That's fine, that doesn't count as a swear word, surely.
I am joined today, in the absence of Mark, once again, by the brilliant planet FPL, or as I like to call them, FPL planets, which I know James really likes. It's great to have you both here. If you're listening on the audio, Suj is in a suit, which is a hell of a commitment. James didn't bother. Do you own a suit, James?
No.
I was always told
not one that would fit me anyway.
I was always told as if we get invited somewhere nice, you know, we've got to dress up for the occasion. And I always remember you and Mark suiting up for the 10,000 subscribers. So I thought, you know what? Today we're going to make an effort.
We did. An FPL Focal came on a few weeks ago. He wore a suit as well. I know. So, but he didn't wear a bow tie. The James Bond look is.
I had to level it up, you know.
SAFC says save some women for the rest of us, Suj. Love that. I think if you're if you're expecting really kind of intricate talk, obviously we're going to get that, but this one might be a little bit more informal than other black boxes, I sense, just because, well, James is here. How are you, James? How you doing? You all right?
All right, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How's your game week so far?
Midland. It's surviving. I think for me it was always a case of surviving with a minimal red arrow, but obviously the news we had the last couple of hours on Reece James, it might even end with a green arrow, as I don't own him.
That'd be very nice.
So I've got a captain to go. I mean, if I pull a green out of this week, I'd be delighted with the amount of other stuff was going on Wildcard as bench boosters. I haven't used anything, so to survive small red as I am now, I'd quite take that for this week, actually.
Yep, absolutely. There's people saying they can't hear you, but I'm sure they can, because I can hear you, which is fine. Let me know in the chat. I've just pressed a load of buttons, so we'll see if that fixes anything.
Hello.
He is definitely here. I think it's just your volume, so I've just put your volume up a little bit, James, and we'll see if that fixes things. Right, let's talk about game weeks so far. Then, so you mentioned you're on a middling sort of game week so far. You're on 64 points, which isn't bad. Foster in goal, Trent, Cody, Rudiger captain, Cancelo, Salah, Fraser, Ramsey, Rafinha, Broya, and the mighty Harry Kane, of course, in your team up front. Rudiger captain? It's a bit boring, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, I'm a boring FPL player, mate. I'm not going to lie. I completely bottled it because the theory was, as Reece James won't play twice, will he? I was right, wasn't I?
Yep,
I mean, look, it's easy to do the hindsight thing. I just generally don't like the principal idea. I've been bitten on this so many times. I think of even like Calvert-Lewin as little as like 2 months ago, ahead of a double. Buying players when they come straight back from injury just invariably goes really badly for me. So I try and avoid it. And actually looking ahead on my strategy, I kind of want a more nailed Chelsea option there. We know the upside of Reece James, but Rudiger does play every week. And it's not like he's incapable in terms of getting attacking returns. Of course, if I could go back to Friday night / Saturday morning, I would have bought Reece James as many of the rest of you have. And those are obviously captain him are unlucky because me and Suj joked on Monday. He was like, well, Rudiger might outscore. And I said, yeah, it's more likely James ends on 72. It's probably more likely. So it's certainly an escape that he's not going to play tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I was on the free hit. So to James was quite an easy choice for me. I know a lot of people went for Rudiger for the kind of safety. I mean, you say that you would have gone for James. I mean, James could be out for an extended period of time. Would you... At least you haven't got that headache to deal with. I mean, I think it was an advantage. Ryan Fraser as well.
Yeah, nice punt.
Must be chuffed with that, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a punt. I spoke about him. I'd watched quite a bit of the Newcastle game at Brentford because he'd really stood out on the. Me and Suj were on the booze on the Saturday when they played at Brentford. Watched Match of the Day the next morning. And he stood out great. So I went back and watched all of the first half of that. And he stood out on the eye test far in excess of Willock. Yet the Newcastle people I was speaking to were saying, actually, no, we prefer Willock. I don't know if that was down to a word that I've now muted, nailledness. But I really fancied Fraser. I think he's done many of us good FPL stuff in the past. And I think really importantly, he's looked very fit. the last couple of weeks. There was a lot of question marks in terms of his relationship with Eddie Howe. I saw an interview with him the week before the Brentford game where he looked like he was going to break into tears, how highly he was held in Eddie Howe in regard, the way he was speaking about him. So I think he's enjoying his football again with 5.3. Back-to-back doubles.
It's interesting that though, isn't it? Because we kind of thought the relationship between Howe and Fraser had disintegrated with the whole Bournemouth thing, and we thought Fraser didn't want to play. His contract was coming to an end and all of that. But he definitely looks like someone who's enjoying, playing under Howe and given license. I mean, I think when you've maybe worked under Bruce and then you go for Howe, it must be such a difference in mentality and change. I was between Fraser and Willock. I debated it all week. I made quite a good case, I thought, on BlackBox for Fraser last week. Then I changed my mind and went for Willock, and then changed my mind again and went for Ward-Prowse. So I didn't get any of them. So that's just kind of how it goes.
It's not over yet, though, mate.
It's not over yet. But 13 points from Fraser is pretty tasty. Suj, you are having a bit of a nightmare season. Just before we get into your team,
hold on.
What is going on?
Well, yeah, by whose standards are we calling this a nightmare season? Because I'm quite happy with. Well, to be honest, I'm not quite happy with how it's going. You are right, I think, Az, in that it started really slowly this season. It was a real struggle to make any headway. Didn't seem to make any headway. But then I had a period post Wildcard where I went from about 1 million to 125,000. And that was the highest rank that I'd had all season. Bearing in mind, I have never had a 5-figure rank in my life. Like in my FPL career, I've never had a rank that's less than 6 figures. So I was thinking that I'm ripe and ready to kick on. But it just kind of hasn't happened. Ever since I hit that 125k, I've slowly and surely over the last 6, 7, 8 weeks dripped back down to 287k. And it's been slow, torturous kind of down, really. It's one of these strange ones. I've really not enjoyed the last 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, mainly because of all of the doubles and all of the kind of rearrangements and what have you. I feel like I've just ended up making a lot of transfers that I should rather than transfers that I wanted to make, or held on to certain players just because they've got a double in a couple of weeks, like Dennis and even Trossard, who's sat there for a double next week and what have you. They've just lingered around, and I've been making transfers that I should, not necessarily that I want. So and when you do that and you get red arrows, it's a bit soul destroying.
Yeah, well, I've got your team on the screen. That's a bit of a spoiler for later. That's not supposed to be your team graphic. That's supposed to be the points graphic. Have you got your game week points? Week?
I've got it open in front of me. I'm sitting on a whopping 46 at the moment. I feel like this weekend I missed.
Why did you lie? They can't see it.
That's true.
Yeah, no, 130 points I'm on this week.
I missed all of the players that are hauled that maybe don't have like ridiculous ownership, but Coutinho, for example, did particularly well. Ryan Fraser was one that I missed. Ivan Toney was one that I missed. Even Saka, I don't know.
Everyone missed Ivan Toney.
I know, but there's a number of players that are between, say, 10 and 25% ownership, and quite a few. I mean, even Reece James went off this weekend. I missed all of them. And I did feel like most teams had at least one of these guys in there that boosts a 45 to a 60. And 60 is respectable, but 45 as it stands is not. But still a few more to go. I've still got Rudiger to go. Still got Max Kilman to go. Still got Breuer and Dennis.
Dennis. Well. You're fine.
And Mason Mount. So, it could turn into a less bad red arrow.
Yeah,
it could get worse.
It could get worse. That's true.
It's been an interesting week because the double game week players, a lot of them have delivered. We talked about Fraser. The Chelsea players. People who bought those in have done well, but also the single game week players have done well as well. The likes of Saka, Kane. So
even 12 points off Trent was decent.
And Trent as well. Exactly.
Well, yeah.
So I free hitted him out, for example. So. We talk about a good week to have a bad week. This was a bad week to have a bad week, really, because the average was so high based on all these players. So, but there's still games to play, like James said, and hopefully, we can all turn it round. But come on, so you've got to be pushing up into the top 100k. You can get there. Yeah,
Yep,
we do.
that's why I'm hoping. That's why as soon as you invited us onto this, as I was like, I'm having it because I feel like this is free management consultancy that I'm going to be getting off you. You're going to get the charts and graphs out and tell me where I'm going wrong.
Well, it's going to be James talking us
get.
into Matt Doherty. I think that's the main reason why he's here.
As I can see the king saying turn me up again, and
You're up. No, you turned up. You turned up. Yeah, don't worry. The king. Don't give him that.
We miss you, Mark.
We do miss you, Mark. Hopefully, Mark is back next week. So, for anyone who's missing Mark and wants to hear more from him and less of me, then hopefully he's back next week. That's the plan. Anyway, my week. Sorry, everyone. I'm having a good week. Free hit played though, so you'd hope it'd be a good week on the free hit. Suj, James, Rudiger, Salah, Havertz, Coutinho, Rafinha, Ward-Prowse, Kane. And Adams 95, which is way better than I, could have ever anticipated. Reece James doing the business, Havertz coming in, which was great. Coutinho doing well. I am disappointed by James. I know I shouldn't be. I know everyone's saying, 18 points, you should be grateful with that. But if he'd lined up against Norwich, which I was expecting him to do after coming off at 70, he could have hit that again. He could have got 72 points on his own, I reckon. In
hindsight, that's why he came off, isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly. That's exactly why. Because he came off and he said, I took a knock, but I'm fine. On to the next game. And I thought, nothing of it. Actually, that's quite good. 70 minutes.
See you in April race.
So, yeah, he's out for a while. So, I mean, obviously, I've got him in the free hit, so I'm fine. Because I don't now, he was even giving me a decision to make whether to have him on the wildcard or not. But now I haven't got that choice to make. I'm obviously going to...
What made you go for it? You're absolutely right. Obviously, definitely going treble Chelsea was an obvious. What made you decide to free hit last week?
The Chelsea double game week.
Just simple as that, just Chelsea.
Pretty much, yeah. My team looked okay, but I was just waiting to use a free hit when there was a big upside. And like Chelsea with those two fixtures, Burnley and Norwich. When you've got a top team like Chelsea playing two games like that, I just felt like I had to go with it. And the stars James coming back from injury, Havertz ousting Lukaku from the team. It just seemed a good way to do it. And the reason I went for James captain was because I just couldn't see another captain that I really liked the look of. I didn't want to go for Salah or Kane, obviously, because I've got the single game week. Like Villa have been a bit strange. I wasn't Coutinho to put in those numbers and that performance that he did against Southampton. So I went for James purely because of a lack of other options. And again, it's just been a bit of a lucky one. But yeah, like the likes of Saka and Trent and stuff have dented it a little bit. Because I was up to 600 in the world at one point until they all kind of started firing. So yeah.
Well, you're only halfway through your game week, so
Yep.
do you know what I mean? I've only got 5 players left to go. You've got another 11.
Well, I've got 8. I've got 8 this week. Yeah, because I've had Salah and Kane, and obviously James hasn't got another.
All right, you kept those guys.
Yeah,
it's effective losing 2 without James, isn't it?
Yeah, and losing the captain as well. But yeah, I can't complain. Hopefully, Ward-Prowse, because I spent way too long deliberating on that final spot. And when you look at Ward-Prowse and he obviously hasn't got anything, you're like, how the hell did I end up there? Like, but anyway,
JWP is really consistent. I mean, we spoke about him a lot recently in the sense that actually, when you're struggling to get the kind of go up to sort of your 7 million or so on game week 1, he's the sort of player who should just go in and you forget about him for 18 weeks or so, because eventually the returns will roll. But he's very unpredictable, right? He could blank this week and then against Watford blank against Leeds, and then he'll go and get 2 goals and an assist against Chelsea.
He is frustrating because he always puts in good performances. Whenever you watch him play, he's always playing well. But FPL wise, I think he had his first spell I've seen of him this season where he was actually consistently returning like goals and assists. I mean, pretty much all from set plays or the goals anyway. But now it's dried up again, and now he's gone back to that inconsistent, big haul, no haul, and trying to time it is so difficult. So yeah, we'll kind of see what happens.
The thing with JWP is that it's not just set piece now as well. His James, his open play delivery is not too bad either, is it?
I don't know what you're giving it the big unluck they didn't go to your place and win 3-2 as well.
All right, fair play. They did as well. They turned both of us over.
And knock you out the cup last week. Like, why are you bringing it up?
For anyone wondering, Suj is a West Ham fan, James is a Spurs fan, which always makes for a delightful podcast.
Yeah.
Let's touch on Mark's game week quickly. He's in the chat being horrible to me, like he normally is. He's on 67. He played his bench boost. Foster Trent, Sace Kilman, Son, Salah, Coutinho, Rafinha captain, interestingly enough. Broja, Jimenez, and St. Maximan. And then Ramsdale, Saka, Tierney, and Robertson. How jammy is that? Saka 12. You know, you bench boost those three Arsenal players against Watford, like so many did, who wildcarded back in 26.
In fairness to Mark, and a lot of other people would have been in this situation, was probably keeping his fingers crossed for Chelsea v Arsenal rather than Norwich v Chelsea. If you planned this way, and I think we'd kind of discussed that actually, if you plan towards this thinking that the Arsenal were going to have the double, you should probably still follow through with it, because, I mean, what was you overly expecting from Chelsea away in any case? So it was a great fixture. I mean, you're probably not expecting 12 or so from Saka, but then arguably you would have expecting a double clean sheet maybe. So goes both ways. I think he's done right if he'd set up to bench boost this week and then was unfortunate to have the wrong fixture announcement, then I think he and others who've done similar have done right.
I mean, Mark messaged me when he saw the Watford team. You know, there's no Josh King in there. The Watford team looked awful. And then Cucho scores an overhead kick, a Rooney-esque overhead kick, and gets rid of his double clean sheet.
Tap in.
Yeah, that's just what happens, isn't it? And I hate the bench boost shit. I'm jealous that he's got rid of it. Have you both got yours? We're going to be talking about chip strategy in a bit, but you both got your bench boost.
Yeah, Suj will do whatever I do.
Yeah.
As I'm quickly learning. I didn't realise it was like that.
Yeah, no. I get too easily influenced, and which makes you wonder why my rank's so much worse than James.
What can we talk you into on this podcast? And that's what I want to know.
Loads, I think. Loads.
Oh, yes.
Whatever you say, as he'll do. He's got someone else to listen to for a change. He'll do whatever you tell him to do, mate.
Oh, I'm excited.
If you start spouting out about Cucurella being the best defensive asset this week, he'll buy him.
Well, he's already got bloody Trossard, so...
Well,
that's probably my fault as well.
James is sitting on Trossard as well.
Oh, dear.
So, yeah,
I'd like to sit on him, yeah.
Don't worry, he features really highly in the tables later. He doesn't.
I'm sure he does.
He definitely doesn't. Great and the good, as we talk about each week. So I've overtaken Fabio. I'm at the top of that now, which is a small miracle. Lots of chips played out of these 15 managers. I think I was the only free hit. Yeah, Fabio wildcarded. General, Tom Stevenson, Let's Talk Andy, all played other chips. Mark played his bench boost, like I said. Mark is bottom. Well, he's overtaken Les Caldwell, but Les Caldwell got hacked. And we're kind of making up the point, you know, we've adjusted his points, but I don't think I really can. I'd be so despondent if I'd got hacked. So Mark needs to put his finger up, basically. He can't be bottom of the bloody grey and the good. That's just embarrassing.
Hang on, I'm above Mark.
You're above Mark? Yep, you're an 89k. So that would put you just above Joe and under Neil. Suj, I'm afraid you would be rock bottom of the grey and the good.
I'd just be happy to be in it, mate. To be honest, exactly that. You know, I'd just be happy to share the same table.
Yeah, well, you're definitely at the table. No worries about that. All the captains this week were pretty much between James and Rafinha. Interestingly enough, no Coutinho captains, which I was surprised about. He was my vice. You know, it was a double game week, but there wasn't a huge amount of options on show, like I kind of talked about last week with Praz and Sonaldo. Only FPL Matthew went a bit different. He went for Havertz captain, which was a nice shout, and has another game. So he could easily outscore James. No one would be too surprised by that. You both went for Rudiger, though. You talk about captain it. You talk about copying each other. Suj, why did you go for Rudiger? You're safe.
Yeah, it really was down to safety. I already owned Rudiger, so I'd been benching him through the blanks that Chelsea had. I didn't sell him and move him on. So I already owned Rudiger. So the choice for me became a second Chelsea player. Was it either to add Reece James defensively or go further up the pitch? And I ended up buying Mason Mount. But I'd rather captain the security of Rudiger over the explosiveness of Mount in this situation.
Well, you never know. Could get a thunderbolt of a goal from Rudiger. But interesting, you both own Trossard and you both captain Rudiger. There's definitely something going on.
We're boring.
Bench Trossard, didn't we?
In terms of some of the other stats, what I did notice is very, very different between you both, though. James is hit crazy. If you compare yourself to the other great and the good managers, you've taken the second most hits after Yavers, who really has taken a lot of hits. He's like minus 64. You're on minus 52,
That's nice.
though, which is a lot of hits. Suj, you're the complete opposite. You are joint bottom, I think, out of the great and the good for hits taken, with only a -24. So completely different strategies there. James, you just love a hit? Did you know you were taking this many?
Not at all. The irony of this is that in pre-season last year I ended up taking more hits than I normally would. Generally, on average, over the course of the season, I'd probably end up taking about 20 points worth of hits over the course of a whole season. And last year, it ended up being around sort of the 40 mark. And we were talking about it at the start of the season, saying that me being aggressive, it just doesn't suit my game to be aggressive. But this constant rolling of doubles, this just feels like there's value in taking -4s nearly every week if you're not using any chips and stuff. So that's the main reason why. I mean, it's just constantly, particularly those weeks where we was having postponements and 4 or 5 games. For me, it was just constantly value, just every week to be going -4, -4, -4, constantly over and over. So it'd probably be another -4 this week as well, to be honest. I don't look at it and go, I've taken X amount of hits. I should. This season's been, like last season was very unique. This has also been very unique for very different reasons. We're unlikely to ever have a season like this again, where you just constantly rolling with a team having a double game week almost every week. And we may only have 2 game weeks left that don't have doubles, right?
Just a shame it's always Burnley, isn't it?
That might be coming again, by the way.
Probably will. Suj, opposite for you, only -24.
To be honest, I was surprised when you said it was as high as 24. I thought I'd probably only taken 3 or 4 hits all season. You know when you get to that point where you're taking a hit and you're thinking, right, okay, what's the potential gain? You also kind of sometimes question yourself, right, what's the downside of taking a hit, right? What's my worst case scenario with the player that I've still got in versus the player that I'm going to bring in? The player that I've still got in could outscore them. And there's certain situations where they do. I find it easy to talk myself into holding the player I have rather than looking at the upside of the player that I'm getting in. So looking at glass half empty probably steers me away from it. Like looking at it, I've not taken a -8 ever. Definitely this season. I might have only ever taken one once or twice in my life. So even taking one hit for me is a little bit difficult. I think I need to start thinking a little bit more short term in terms of my hits. When I take a hit, I try and maybe average out over like 4 or 5 weeks. If I can get a gain within 2 weeks, then it's probably worth it. It's probably easier for me to kind of synthesize taking a hit and making it work over a shorter period. So I might need to think about doing that. But in a strange way, I'm surprised I'm 30 points down on James in terms of how many hits I've taken, but also surprised at how many that I have taken. So I think I need to maybe.
Do you think you're too loyal to players then? Is that what you're saying? Like you see the upside too much in the players you've got and don't? Because I'm the opposite, right? I always think the grass is greener. I always want to try and roll the dice and find someone. And okay, I haven't taken that many hits this season, but that's kind of how I tend to look at it. If I'm ever 50-50 between doing it or not, more than often I'll risk it.
I think this is, you're really conditioned by what happens to you in the past, right? And whenever I've done nothing and stuck with players that I've got, whether or not this is true, but it's definitely how I feel, it always ends up working out okay. Like if I just leave it be, nothing bad ever generally happens. I don't miss out on massive hauls. And whether I've forgotten to get a player on purpose or accidentally, which happens from time to time, is yeah, I'm not going to clarify. But generally, when I've done nothing bad has happened, and it makes me feel like, okay, in this case, if I do nothing and don't take the hit, what's the worst that can happen? But that's just a gut feel in me, rather than actually scientifically looking at if I had taken that hit, how many more points would I had, and trying to actually make a note of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at this table and you look at the kind of league table, and I mean, I've taken a -24, same as you. Only Zofar's taken less than us, so -20. But you can see as it goes down the table, more and more hits start kind of creeping in. So Les Caldwell at the bottom, -36. Mark's taken -40. Joe's taken a -48. Then you've got Neil there on a -24 as well. So it's not just as easy as saying take less hits or take more hits or anything like that, because it is completely dependent on what you've got and who you're bringing in. But it does tend to indicate that the more hits you take, the worse you do. Although in your 2 cases, it's the flip way around of that.
Well said, Ash. Cheers, mate.
No worries.
No, I think to go back to Suj's point in terms of, and yours as well as in terms of being loyal, I think we probably influence each other a little bit, in the sense that in the second half of the season, we really do go into kind of planning head with our strategy. And I think me and Suj are both quite fixture orientated in terms of our decision-making process. Part why we'll probably come back onto him, why someone like Trossard is in the squad and he may yet even survive this week, incredibly.
Wow.
Is because of that. I mean, take that as Trossard. You go, okay, like I've stuck with him for 6 weeks, in which case there was 2 doubles in that period, of which when I first bought, your fixture run, and I say you, Baz, because obviously it's your team, was good. I'd watched you the week before at Brighton. You was at Everton, sorry. You were smashing, and Trossard played really well despite not returning that day. And now I'm sitting here with a double, and you go, there's better double options at similar price. Kulusevski, Saka, of course. But then it's easy to say, yeah, bomb him out. But then if me and Suj are both free hitting in game week 30, which is highly likely, what's Trossard got in 31? Norwich at home. It's not that easy actually just to bomb it out. And so I'd look at it and go, is Saka, Kulusevski going to score 5 or more points over Trossard over 29 and 31 specifically? And then actually, because it's Norwich in 31, I'm not sure that's an easy choice. That said, knowing Trossard, he probably won't even play, will he, Az?
Well, that's the worry. I mean, we are really bad at the moment, like really bad. And I've got some data on us, sort of over the last kind of few
Don't
weeks.
Don't worry,
as
mate.
Well.
I'll be in Brighton next Wednesday night. We'll cheer you up, mate.
I don't know. It's a bad time to be playing you, and a good time to be playing us. I think we're exactly the kind of team that's going to we're not going to sit back. They're the teams you struggle with. We're going to try and play, and you're going to pick us off. I can't see us getting anything in that match. Although you've been a bit less optimistic, I think, from the predictions, right? Talk about that.
I have backed it for a draw, yeah.
You have, yeah. I don't spoilers.
What James did there with Trossard was classic talking yourself out of a hit. What I would consider, like, we will have this debate on the shows we do, and then you talk yourself out of it. And I'm sure that Saka or Kulusevski, who I'm going to potentially buy both this week, will outscore Trossard. Like, it's a no-brainer. But then you can sell yourself the narrative of, well, I'm going to free hit in 30, fine. He's got a really good fixture in 31. And he's got a double anyway, so should I even bother swapping a double player for a double player? Like, I had that same dilemma with Foster and Jose Sarr last week. I wanted to get Jose Sarr in, but I had a double goalkeeper, so I didn't want to get a second double goalkeeper. So you end up doing nothing. And that's classic. You talk yourself out of making a move, when if I just look at it cold light of day, actually, I don't want to see Trossard in my team, and I'd rather see Saka. I was about to get it done.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think one thing I've done differently this season that I haven't done in previous seasons is that, because I get swayed by fixtures as well, but even if a player's got a good fixture, I ask myself that question: do I want to see this player in my team long term? Because I always get burnt by. I bring in a player, I might even only plan to hold him for 2 weeks. And then you have other things to do. You end up making other moves, and I always get stuck with Mope. He's my perfect example of that. Always get stuck for him for way longer than I want. And now I just don't bring in players that I don't believe in, no matter how good the fixtures are. And I think Trossard is exactly that kind of trap, because the fixtures, when any player's got Norwich, you want to keep them because they can just fall apart to anyone. But if he didn't start that game, I would not be even remotely surprised. So really, really tricky. Yeah, we'll chat about your teams in a bit, because you both got Trossard, which is again amazing coincidence. Coincidence, is it? Maybe
10 other players ain't too bad.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, let's talk some strategy then. Just before we get into kind of the player and team data. So obviously we've got double game at 29. We got 30 with very few games, rubbish looking games. And then we've got all these postponed games to be rescheduled. So I'll just read these out. So we got Man City. They've got a home match against Brighton. Oh my God, we're going to get absolutely battered in that game, I imagine. United have got Liverpool away. Liverpool obviously got United. Chelsea have got Arsenal and Leicester. Leicester have got 3. Norwich, Everton, Chelsea. Spurs have got Arsenal. Arsenal then got Spurs and Chelsea. So 2 games is decent, but not the easiest opposition. Everton then, 4 games to be rearranged. 4 good-looking games as well. Burnley, Leicester, Watford and Crystal Palace. Villa have got Burnley. Newcastle have got Palace. Palace have then got Newcastle and Everton. Southampton have got Burnley. Brighton have got Man City. Burnley have got 3, so all the people that are holding on to Weghorst. They've got Villa, Everton and Southampton to look forward to. Norwich, who cares about them, but they've got Leicester. And then Watford have got another double game week, which probably means all the King and Dennis owners are going to hold him for that. So I mean, obviously you can't keep track of everything I've just said. There's loads of fixtures there, but there's a lot to play for, isn't there? There's a lot of games to be rescheduled. James, how are you sort of dealing with this? Because our chip strategies differ quite a lot. You're planning on wildcarding a bit later into 31. Everton, for me, are the team to discuss because they're so bad. Like, they were so bad against you the other night. How many of their players are you looking at with 4 games to be rearranged?
So, as we've spoken about Trossard, what do you think about Jordan Pickford?
What do I think about him as a player, or what do I think about him as an FPL option to the end of the season?
FPL asset for the next 5 or 6 game weeks.
I think Everton at home are okay. I think the Goodison form will probably mean they stay up. And actually, their home games are better than their away games for the games to be, rearranged. So what I mean by that is they've got Leicester and Palace, who are 2 tougher matches, but they're at home. So in theory, it should be easier. Their away matches against Burnley and Watford, you've got to think they've got to pick up points. If it was reversed, I could see them losing all 4 of those matches. I think Pickford's an all right shot. What is he, 4'8", something like that? Yeah.
He's still in my mind for this week, potentially, because I've only got De Gea and Foster going into this week. And looking at the doublers in terms of the keepers, Ramsdale is an obvious one. I get that. But I'm free hitting 30, so bear that in mind in terms of that's not quite an essential. So same kind of applies to Loris. I feel like Hugo's a little bit expensive. Dubravka's cheap, 4.4, but the reality is the first game of this double is still Chelsea away. Brighton, I think you'll probably say, as Sanchez should be of no interest to you at the moment. We're not using the third Liverpool spot on Alisson. And it leaves us Pickford. And Pickford, for someone like me who's free hitting in 30, I might be looking at a fixture schedule. If I free hit 30 and 33, I could be looking at a fixture schedule which is double, West Ham away, double. He could have, in theory, 3 doubles in 3 of the next 4 game weeks that I'm not going to be free hitting in. And therefore, that's why I potentially want to consider it. Because they're the most likely team, Everton, to have a fixture dropped into 31 or 32. To the extent that actually I'll be surprised if they don't.
So is this not classic what we were just talking about? Bringing in a player who you don't really want just because they've got a good run of fixtures.
I'm really trying to listen. So I've got no Everton players on my radar and no desire to want to get any Everton players. They're in bad shape. I know they're a bit better at Goodison, but still. I'm just thinking, like, with James is looking at the number of fixtures that Pickford's got. I'm like, but at what point do you start tallying up how many clean sheets do you think this guy can get, or how many points is he actually going to get? And it doesn't matter how many games he's got. I can't see Everton keeping a clean sheet at all. I mean, they score more own goals than anything else. You saw it the other day, James. So, Pickford could have 3 times as many fixtures as someone like Jose Sarri. He might not keep as many clean sheets, for example. Well, I know Wolves have been a bit leaky recently, but I was really listening, trying to put myself on the other side of it, because I'm like, nah, this doesn't make any sense to me to go to Pickford. But I can't find any reason to want to go to Pickford. If the only reason is that he's got more fixtures, then that's not a good FPL reason for me.
I mean, I'm on the wildcard. I haven't once considered Pickford. Schmeichel has been in my thoughts, with Leicester having now kept 2 clean sheets in a row. Justin's back in training, I think, for Farners. I think maybe coming back soon. They look like they're getting a bit stronger, and one of their doubles is Norwich. But I think I'm probably going to end up with Dubravka as my second keeper, because he's going to make loads of saves. They've got a decent looking double coming up. So it'll probably be him. But we have got a section on keepers. We'll touch a bit more on the keepers in a second. What about asset? What about other Everton assets? I mean, Leicester and Everton and Burnley have got the 3 most fixtures to be rearranged. So you've got Weghorst, you've got Gordon, Calvert-Lewin, Harvey Barnes.
The best outfield asset at Everton is Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, 4.5.
Yeah,
to be honest. And I know many Everton fans think that he'll probably stay in the team at the moment, and he was the one player that Lampard praised after the game on Monday evening. But you've got Calvert-Lewin now back fit. You've got Damari Gray still to come back in. I don't think it's even a guarantee that he stays in the team. I mean, I think he's a great enabler for this week and to sit on your bench for future game weeks where you might be able to use him later on. But at the moment, no, I mean, I wouldn't go into Calvert-Lewin or or Richarlison.
Yeah.
I mean, and in terms of defensively, I mean, you couldn't talk yourself into like a Coleman or a Kenny or a Michael Keane or anything. There's absolutely no chance. I think Braithwaite is 4 million, I want to say, and he might start getting a few minutes, but he might end game weeks on -1. So
I mean, we are really scraping the barrel when we're going down to Jason Braithwaite.
I wouldn't be considering Everton. The only thing I would say is, I know you want to do more on keepers, but just interestingly, I guess a few listeners will be free hitting this week potentially. Which keeper would you go on a free hit just for this week?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, I mean, I've got Ramsdale on the wildcard, who I'm more than happy with. There isn't really anyone that massively none of the double teams for clean sheets massively stand out. I mean, you could go. I don't know, because you could go
Pickford,
for Alisson.
It's Pickford. It's Pickford.
Is it?
Yeah,
Pickford?
it is Wolves and Newcastle at home. It is, yeah.
Yeah, fixtures wise, it probably is. I guess it. I don't know. I don't think I can say Pickford, because that will get soundbited, and then there'll be.
I've already said it. Yes, right. They can chop me up. It's fine. I'm not bothered, mate.
I don't think I could pick Pickford on a free hit. I think I'd rather have Ramsdale.
Generally, though, and this is exactly what Suj has said, we can get blinded by this in terms of, look at Everton. They might have, hypothetically, doubles in 32 and 34, for example, to go with the one that they've got now. They won't double in 33, obviously, because their fixture with Palace is postponed, but they'll almost definitely still play in that game week. But then they have got doubles to come, but then what do you even want from it? There's nothing you want from it unless Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison or Damari Gray really started showing you something. We go, there's value in them. There's not, it's not.
There's not. No.
Talk about the next team, mate.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll come on to just before we move off this. So there's 4 teams here that don't have any more doubles to be rearranged. That's West Ham, Leeds, Wolves, and Brentford. People are pretty stacked on quite a few of these players. I mean, West Ham, you've got Bowen, and people still maybe hanging on to Antonio. Leeds, loads of people got Rafinha. Wolves, people with triple Wolves who had Gameweek 26 wildcards, defence and Jimenez hanging around. Okay, no one's got any Brentford players. Would you avoid these players, Suj? Are you looking to target the double game week side, or do you think? I mean, Wolves have kind of fallen apart at the kind of the right time, right? Because it means you can get off their assets maybe fairly easily. But what about someone like Rafinha?
Rafinha, we'll come back to Rafinha. I think Wolves are actually okay. Like I've been flirting with getting Jose Sarr to add to Max Kilman for ages. As much as Wolves haven't been great, they've not been conceding tons of goals. I mean, it was only 1-0 when they came to our place as well. I think Wolves are actually going to get back to keeping clean sheets pretty soon. But their bad form has kind of put me off adding a second defensive to Kilman in Jose Sarr, and I might just go towards Ramsdale now and spread it, because I don't have a Tierney or an Arsenal defender. Rafinha is definitely a consideration. The big unknown with Leeds is obviously the new manager. I know James has spent quite a bit of time looking at Jesse Marsh and how the team's going to line up. And the general consensus is they'll be more solid defensively, but Rafinha is still going to be a real threat. So I would consider Rafinha. Bowen might be very easy for people to come off now because of his injury. So that I think is definitely an easy off for West Ham. We'll know a lot more about West Ham after tomorrow, or even more so after the second game against Sevilla, because if there's still something to play for in the Europa League, that's going to be priority. I feel like ahead of anything else, and Bowen will be rested for that because we'll need him in that. And the last team you said was Brentford, right? Brentford, yeah, I'm not interested in any Brentford.
No.
What's interesting about these 4 teams, though, I mean, there's 2 obvious things for them. One, they're all playing game week 30.
Yep.
So for those either free hitting or for those who have gone in through, they're going to be in people's thoughts. I guess Brentford, the least of them. But it's also worth saying, although you can't see it there, every one of those teams can still have a double game week. Brentford are scheduled to play Everton in game week 37. Okay, that's unlikely. West Ham are scheduled to play Man City in the same game week. That's FA Cup final. Leeds are scheduled to play Chelsea in game week 33. And Wolves are scheduled to play Man City in game week 33. So Wolves and Leeds, and on my kind of predicted schedule, I actually got the 2 of them blanking in 33 with a double near the end. But all 4 of those teams could actually still have a double.
Yeah. Let's take a quick look at the fixtures kind of going forward. This kind of takes us into the chip strategy. a little bit. So if anyone hasn't listened to Plenty FPL before, I strongly suggest you do. I mean, I've always loved Plenty FPL, and I'm not even just saying that because
the
you're
FPL
both
planet.
on
Thanks, Az.
the FPL planet, as I like to call it, which I got shot down for. I mean, you do great podcasts. I mean, I know you did that podcast on Football Index, for example. It taught me loads of stuff about that, all the problems with that company and how it affected people and stuff like that. So anyone who's listening to this and is enjoying listening to James and Suj, definitely check that podcast out. You did a great podcast recently on chip strategy as well, which I'm going to try and get you to condense down into like a 5-minute window right now. I asked you both to send me your chip strategies going forward. I mean, they're a bit different. I mean, I kind of put this together just quickly. Let's just assume that people have got triple captain, bench boost, wildcard and free hit left. I mean, not everyone has. Obviously, bench boost been played and all of that, but I think we all do, right? We all have those 4 chips left.
Yeah,
is that right? Yeah,
yep.
I'm without triple captain, but got the others.
Yeah, I'm without triple captain as well. So assuming that you've got those, then this is the kind of thing. So I'm wildcarding in 29. A lot of people are going to be triple captaining in 29. That's kind of, it's going to be one of those. So you mentioned free hits and bench boost and all that kind of stuff, but again, we've seen these splits, and I think that's a way a lot of people are going. We're then going to see a big difference in whether people are free hitting in 30 or not. Some people are just going to ride it out and plan for it, which is what I'm doing with the 29 wildcard. Other people have got like 4 or 5 players, and they're just going to be like, screw it, and free hit into that. If you don't free hit in 30, you free hit probably in either 33 or 36. They're the estimated big double game weeks. I think is that right in saying?
36 will be far the biggest. 33 will have a few. I've got projected about 6 doubles at the moment. Yeah. 37 can have a few as well. Although those who double in 37, in most of the cases, you're probably talking 4 teams or so, will probably 3 of them will double in 36 as well. So you'd probably carry it through. Yeah.
So you essentially, the bench boost, if you still got it, is probably best used in 36. That's what I've got for both of us in our plans. I'm going to have the extra free hit. I'm probably going to use that in 33, or like you mentioned in 37 to try and target that. Now, if I still had the triple captain, for example, I don't know when I'd use it if I had all those chips available, because I guess you use it, well, if I'm wildcarding now.
Oh, I see.
So if wildcard now, not using the bench boost, I guess you save it for 37.
Keep your fingers crossed.
And keep your fingers crossed, exactly. Or you just leave it till the final day of the season in 38, which is where I've currently got it on this graph, and just hope for that big final push. But obviously it's not ideal because you want to use it in a double game week. I know I'm rambling on a little bit, but the one thing I want to mention was wildcards. So to me, with your chips left, I would have thought 31 would be the time I'll be wildcarding. You said to me that you're thinking of doing it in 34.
Honestly, I've looked through 31, 32 and be really happy with my lot, with or without Trossard as. So, no, I just don't think it would. I'm going to end up with a pretty heavy backline by the looks of it. So, I'm quite happy to run through what I've got. I've got Harry's. He's got decent 31, 32 fixtures and so. So, no, I think there's far more benefit to it personally, and this won't be the same for everybody, wait until after 33 and then actually going 34, 30, 35.
Even though, so does that? I mean, you're mentioning that your strategy's similar to that. I mean, the problem is, I mean, the way I see it, the wildcard, that only gives you 5 weeks to take the most out of arguably your best chip. Right? Is there any temptation for you to play earlier?
There's been temptation to play it for the last 4 or 5 weeks, to be honest with you, each and every week.
Ever since you got it back in January.
Well, yeah. The thing is, though, we didn't know what was going to happen with the fixtures, and also obviously with the FA Cup until the back end of last week. And it felt like for 3 or 4 weeks, whenever I'd sit down with James and we'd be talking about it, it'd be like, but we don't know what the picture's going to look like. We don't know what the picture's going to look like. And I kind of held the wild card back, hoping that I'd know what to do with it when the picture became as clear as possible, which it has done now. It's kind of left me with like, okay, well, I'm not going to use it before I'm going to pull the free hit out in game week 30. I've only got, as it stands, 3 players in game week 30, and I'm only going to add 2 more. So there's no way that I can get through game week 30 without free hitting. And the same for 33. And unlike what James did, the sensible thing, he looked at what his squad would look like in 31 and 32 and said, it looks okay. I just took the view that if I'm going to free hit in a couple of weeks, I'm not going to bother wildcarding in 31. But I might reconsider it. I'd rather wildcard as close to the bench boost as possible.
Yeah.
Which makes it 34, 35. And that's why I'm kind of holding it back at the moment.
See, I came to quite a nice decision last night, which was when I was plotting the wild card and I was thinking exactly the same as you. I was thinking, I've got to have this bloody bench boost in the back of my mind. And I had like Hwang in my team because he was like, at least he's playing. And I had like a couple of like, you know, I weakened my 11 basically to try and ensure that I had at least a couple of all right players on the bench. And in the end, I just thought, screw this. I can't be bothered to have Hwang at 5.4. I will just take the money out, go for Gelhardt, someone I don't even care about. They're probably both going to get 1 point anyway, and I'll use that money to strengthen. And it means that I can go for like Doherty over Dyer, for example. I can go for Thomas over Amity. You know, like these are, I can make like slight upgrades to the rest of my team that are going to be playing a bit more regularly and not have to worry about that. And if my bench boost gets me 6 points or 8 points, is that a disaster to have a stronger team out? What do you reckon, James? Are you? I mean, you're going to be wildcarding a bit later, so you're in a slightly different position.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is I think this year's quite interesting in terms of it always gets thrown back the idea of you can't wildcard that late, you're not getting enough gain on the wildcard. But I actually think those who've wildcarded now are probably going to find that by the time they get to 33, 34, they're going to want to chop everything up themselves as well. So actually the gain, because of the way the doubles have worked this year, for those who've wildcarded recently, I think they're going to find the same 4 or 5 weeks. So actually the same from that point of view. I think there is always a danger with any chips, whether you're dead end into a free hit, whether you're bench boosting, that you put too much priority into these decision making. I've certainly been guilty before of going, I'm going for that player because he's got a double next week. I mean, the example would be maybe looking at Pickford now, for example, going, are you blinded by, it's not specifically this week, but actually in my case, even the possibility of what doubles might come because I think they might drop in a certain order. So there's definitely a danger of it. I think the bench boost is overrated in terms of what people want out of it. And I know plenty of people feel they'd rather get it out of the way because they feel it hinders them. And that's fine. I mean, I would, from a bench boost, I would be happy with 16 points. And I would literally look at that and go, if I've got 4 players who have got 2 games on the bench and they all blank for the 8 fixtures, 8 times 2 is 16.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And that's how I'd look at it. So in theory, if I've got 4 nailed players, sorry, Suj, on the bench, 4 regular first choice starters on the bench, even if they're rubbish, they should get me 16 points by doing nothing. So that's the value I put on it. That's where I think there's some worthwhile in the chip. Many of us, I think me and Mark actually were in the same position last year where actually it's just happened to Mark 2 years run, hasn't it? He's ended up going with the Arsenal singlers and we all went with the Leeds singlers in January last year.
I warned him against Brighton.
But it was the Southampton fixture we really wanted, and that went in the bin. But we'd all planned that way to obviously bench boost then. So, and that's always the danger with the singlers that then that happens. It was Leeds' 2 worst performances last season were against Brighton twice, right? So we weren't to know that at the time. We also didn't know how bad the pitch was going to be that day. So you definitely can put too much focus in it, and it's the same with people this week might be looking at, say, Doherty as, say, a Reece James replacement because he's got double and covers game week 30 when perhaps actually Andy Robertson might be sitting there right in front of your face. But because you're definitely going to game week 30, you go for Doherty. And I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do, by the way. I think that's completely understandable. We're all, many of us are suspect of making that mistake, aren't we?
We are, yeah. I think it's interesting that you mentioned that you'd be happy with 16 points for a bench boost because that's kind of how I always look at it. But I think it's much easier to evaluate the success of a free hit or a triple captain or something like that. Whereas the bench boost, when you wildcard, you have to take into consideration making sure your bench is strong enough, and you maybe weaken the rest of your players by making sure that bench is strengthened. It's almost like there's another calculation that needs to happen to see, you know, how many points you would have got if you just ignored the bench and gone for a stronger. I mean, it's, you know, we're into the realms of ridiculous because it's impossible to make all these sort of permutations and work it all out. But I think I would be happy with 10 points from a bench boost this season, just so I can try and maximise the rest of my players.
Can I be honest? If that's what your expectations are from a bench boost, there's every consideration to actually say you should use it in game week 1.
I agree. I completely agree. I talked Lynn into it. Lynn's probably watching.
If that's all you want as your target, so I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't do that myself. But if you're that not bothered about 10 points, I mean, why not do it basically the first wildcard you've got right at the start?
But I think also it could have fallen into your lap a bit. It could have fallen into my lap a bit better. I think that, you know, if I was wildcarding a bit later, if 30 wasn't this big blank that I'm sort of wildcarding before to try and make sure I've got enough players for it, and because it's a double as well, I've had to use this wildcard a bit earlier. Maybe if I was planning on doing what Suj is saying and using the bench boost closer, it would be a bit different. But it almost feels a bit of a waste to be using the wildcard and then planning for like 4 or 5 games down the line. I don't even know which players I'm gonna want for that bench. It might be that you know, Rodrigo and Dan James get injured and Gelhardt suddenly lines up and Leeds do get a double game week drop in. You just don't know how it's all gonna set. Anyway, that's probably enough on this. I mean, there's so many different. I love the chips this year. I have to say though.
Yeah, really good. There's so much variation this year.
There really is. 26, I think, really kind of shook things up. Exactly what we needed and made this all sort of much more interesting.
And largely, the majority of people did really well, irrespective of what they did.
Yep.
Wildcarders did great. Bench boosters did great. Triple captains did great. Felt like a good game week for everybody. That was a really, really bad week to have a bad week.
That was a brutal game week. Yeah, I remember. I mean, in our correspondence league, James, if you remember, like every single manager in that league, the 25 or so of them, all got over 120 points. It was mental. Just looking down that mini league, everyone in the 100s, 110s, 120s, and then the few 140s, 150s was really mad.
I'm doing a bit of a tracking graph on the people who the variation between the wildcarders and the triple captainers. Haven't got it this week because obviously we're halfway through a game week, so it's hard to know. But that'll be back next week. Paul Gregory says bring back all out attack. What a chip that was!
Oh God,
that was so bad, wasn't it? Bench boost is I would bin off the bench boost if I was in charge of FPL. Bench boost would be so gone on my watch. Right, we're going to talk about some stats now. We've got some team data and some player data to talk about. Before we do, Suj, what are your thoughts on data? How much do you use data to guide your decisions? Do you use it at all?
No.
Good.
Sorry. I suppose
this is going to be a useful hour then for you.
Yeah, no, it's not that. I suppose my issue is, and James will attest to this as well, you can spin any bit of data to match the narrative that you want it to follow. So to say I don't use data is not true. But the problem is that when you generally get spoon-fed stats on podcasts or on Twitter or what have you, they're matching the narrative that someone's trying to sell you. It could be like so-and-so is the highest point scorer in the last 7 game weeks, for example. You're like, well, why have you picked 7 game weeks as a length of time to be talking about this player? It's a very arbitrary amount of time.
11's my favourite. Last 11
exactly
game
that.
weeks.
Yeah, so I think I'm very wary with stats in that I'm always kind of trying to ask the question, what's the narrative that they're trying to sell me with this story that they're painting of this particular player? And if I believe it, then yeah, fine, by all means, I'll buy into it. But if I kind of feel like they're trying to sell a player, particularly based on some data, then I'll ignore it, to be honest with you.
It's very interesting that you talk like that, because to me, stats are... I mean, you know, everyone talks about eye test versus stats and all that kind of thing, but stats are like the kind of unarguable side to things if used in the right way. They're the kind of objective metric. How many shots a player takes in the box, you can't argue with that metric. That's just how many shots they've taken in the box. I mean, XG...
You could, but the quality, then you have to layer in, okay, what was the quality of those chances? Who were they playing against on that day? Who was playing in defence for that particular team, and so on and so on. So there's just so many variables.
There is, but
shots in the box.
I'm just using that as one example. Yeah. I mean, a good example is, I mean, we're going to be talking about minutes per expecting goal involvement, right? So the metric of how likely a player is to have got a return from a game and how long it takes them to get a return. The smaller the number, the quicker it takes them to get to that metric. I think a really good example of that we can talk about, as James well knows, is Harry Kane, right? So Harry Kane, for best part of a third of the season, he's a player who's normally top of this chart. He has the most shots, he has the most goal attempts, he's creating chances for fun, he's doing everything right. He was like 45th or something on the list for these minutes. Whereas you look at him now and he's in the top 10, right up in there in the top 10. I mean, you can work that out from watching the match. But James, what do you think about this? Do you think it's useful to put a back up that test data with this kind of stats as well? Or
Yeah,
do you
I
agree
mean,
with Suj?
look, to be honest, I'm more on Suj's side than the stats side in terms of I don't use it a lot. I think the difference with me is I watch a probably over the top amount of actual football in terms of I'll go back and watch games and stuff. So I tend to use that what I see, because I think even there are certain, I think to put a different spin on what Suj was saying, is saying you could put last 4 game weeks. Kane's better than I don't know, Saka. Bad example. Let's say Saka Kulusevski. Kulusevski's better than Saka over the last 4, for example. But it might not take into account that over those 4 fixtures, Saka's played City, Chelsea, etc. And it annoys me when I see things like that. And I think, well, hang on, no. Player Y has clearly had a far tougher run of fixtures there. That's not a good comparison. So I think what Suj is trying to say is you need it all kind of laid out on the line. For me,
prepared to be annoyed.
No, that's fine. And listen, really intriguing.
No.
It's nice. It's nice for us as well, because we don't ever really particularly pull out the data. And it's not that I dislike looking at it, and I do look at it a fair bit. I would say ultimately my decision making is based on my opinion more than anything I will see on paper. There are certain things that stats can't tell you, like how often Ryan Fraser's running at the back post and if the cross had been better. That's not going to be on a statistic.
See, we're not on completely different wavelengths here, because that is how I use data as well. I mean, I watch a lot of football. I will bring, if I see a player who I think is repeatedly putting in good performances and playing well, making the right runs and being in the right place, all that kind of stuff, I will just use the stats as a bit of a thing to check against it, and more often than not, the stats back up kind of what you're seeing on the pitch.
In Kane's case, whether you looked at the stats, so compare Kane's stats now
Exactly.
to December, or compare what you're actually physically watching
Exactly.
compared to December, actually you're getting the same result, aren't you?
Yep. But other times you can look at the stats and you can see some things that you might have missed in a game because you're focused on other things and looking at, you don't realise just how many touches a player's had in the pinner. Because there are certain stats that I've used my whole sort of career, is a stupid word to use as a game like FPL, but a career as an FPL manager, that I think correlate really nicely with points. And those kind of those expected goal involvement never used to be around. Like, it only came in a couple of years ago. I always used to use chances created, touches in the box, and shots in the box. They used to be the 3 that I look for. And if I'm bringing in a player, a striker normally, and they do well on those 3 metrics, the chances are they're going to get chances and get goals. And again, a lot of that stuff does get backed up by what you see, because a player has, lots of shots, and you see that. But looking at heat maps as well, another form of stats, and seeing where they're taking the touches around the pitch, all of this stuff's kind of really useful. Anyway, right.
The problem I have, sorry to interrupt, because I made you put up that, is James, to be fair, probably makes me a little bit lazy. Not everybody has access to James.
You do pay my wages, in fairness, mate.
Well, but if I really respect the way James looks at football and the amount of football he watches. And so if I have a question, I can literally say, because we see each other basically every single day. And if we don't see each other, we speak every day. James, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And I probably take his opinion on face value and then don't go away and do my own research about it. Or go away and balance the opinion, which is the laziness element of it. And probably most people don't have access to someone like James in their lives every day that probably watches at least half the games over the weekend and has been watching football for so long. So it probably makes me a little bit lazy. I think I've gotten better over the years at understanding James's own biases. Like, he's got his own opinions. We all have our own biases. So I'm trying to figure out and zone out sometimes when is that a unbiased opinion or is that a James biased opinion? Because, for example, I know James got a real soft spot for Brighton, for example, and the way they play football, and quite rightly, because Brighton have been really good, other than 4 defeats on the bounce. But so he will have a sort like Trossard, for example, is probably biased by James's love of Brighton a little bit, not compared to all.
Because
easy with the love. I mean, I'm going down there next week, mate.
I think if you looked at any stats on Trossard, you wouldn't have gone near him. So I think I
agree with that.
And this is where I think the eye test is useful, because Brighton play great football. We look really easy in the eye. It looks like we're doing really well. When you actually look at our attacking stats, we're awful. We create very few chances. We don't. Our striker Mope doesn't have many shots in the box. He relies on overhead kicks and stuff like that. You look at Trossard, and his stats are really poor for someone of his ability as well. So again, this is where I think the stats can just give you something extra. And I completely get why people don't it's like proper nerd stuff, right? But to me, it gives a different way of enjoying football and looking at football when you look at some of these things and you look for things that you maybe miss in the stats. Yeah. Right,
but then
I'm gonna try and sell you some stuff now.
We would watch you and Mark more than anybody else, despite you putting all those stats in front of us. We wouldn't go, "Oh my god, it's statty." Yeah. So it is of interest to us. We're not dismissive of it. It is useful.
No, exactly. I don't think you can be dismissive of it. I mean, there's like Twitter's got like what Grass FC and Analytics FC. There's these two groups, and they're so divided. And it's like we can all just get along, guys. Like you don't need to be dismissive either. It's
on the Bird app, I don't think so, mate.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I did have to block a few Analytic FC people recently, so if you're watching, you deserved it. Right, let's talk some data then. So let's talk team defence. So I've got some season data on the screen, and I've got some last four data on the screen. Oh, I don't know how this is going to go down. What I have got though on the last four is ticker ratings. So this is a measure of the difficulty of the fixtures that those teams have faced. So I'm very glad I put the ticker data in based on what James has just said. So looking at team data over the season, probably no surprise, we've filtered this by minutes per expected goal conceded non-penalty. So two teams at the top, Man City right at the top. They only concede a chance every 13.6 minutes. Minutes per big chance conceded, 90 minutes. So they basically concede one big chance a game. So whenever they concede, that's normally because the team's had one big chance and taken it in that match. Minutes per XG conceded non-penalty, 136.2 is the highest. Chelsea, a second, 109. And then it drops significantly down to Liverpool, 97.4. And then you've got Brighton in fourth. So statistically, we are the fourth best defence in the league. We are not the fourth best defence in the league. I can say that from watching.
You might be when Webster's fit.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, we concede too many stupid goals, I think. But stats-wise, they are stupid goals, which is why our XG conceded non-penalty is so low, which makes sense, right? Having a look at the last four, though. So Liverpool are first, ticker of 6 in the top 10. What's really to know is Chelsea, second, 19th on the ticker for their matches. Bearing in mind, this goes back, ages because they've had all these difficult games. But it just shows, I mean, when you've got a team who's in second, even though they've had difficult matches, that's got to make you sit and take note of their defence, right? And you've both got Rudiger captain. You've got to be confident another clean sheet against Norwich. How important are Chelsea defenders for the run-in, do you think? And what do we do with James if he's out?
I've got an argument against, if I can just jump in on the Chelsea data. Would they be so low on the ticker because he only had 2 fixtures?
No, it's going back. So it's their last 4 matches. The last 4 matches
it includes the last 4 games they played, yeah?
Yes, last 4 games they played.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, that was part. To be honest, we've gone with Rudiger captain. Me and Suj are sitting there thinking that's 12 points, isn't it? Times 2.
Yeah. Couple of bit of cheeky bonus in there as well, comfortably. Yeah.
Because the Chelsea fixtures are amazing, right? From 31 onwards, like absolutely ridiculously nice. So I would expect Chelsea to be top of this. Between now and the end of the season, I'd expect Chelsea to have by far the best defensive data. I'd expect them to probably have the most clean sheets as well, given they're not massively far behind City. So I think anyone looking to wildcards from 31 onwards should definitely be considering a Chelsea defender.
I think whenever you'd be doing it, you'd be considering. I mean, arguably, I think if you were wildcarding now, you're definitely going Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal heavy, but you would definitely have some Chelsea in there as well, walking into Newcastle, then Brentford in 31, etc. and games on. The only caution I think you'd have with Chelsea is they're going to finish third, and we all know that. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if they stay in the Champions League as well, they could mass rotate in the league, couldn't they? The nearer we get to the end, if they're still in Europe and stuff. So that would be a bit conscious. And I think that's that. In terms of Rudiger, maybe wasn't just a pick just for this week. It was for a number of weeks going, well, it doesn't seem to matter what they do, whether it's Luton Town away in the Cup, Club World Cup final, whomever, he plays.
Yep, absolutely. And Thiago Silva's entering into that as well, even though he's getting on a bit.
Yeah, Thiago is 100. I mean, he's still amazing, by the way. The only issue with Thiago is when they have real chunks together. So I wouldn't be certain, for example, that he plays Norwich tomorrow, Newcastle Sunday, Lille on Wednesday. I wouldn't be surprised, for example,
no, absolutely not.
I wouldn't.
He's
and
got
to be honest, there's every chance Tuchel might do what Guardiola and Klopp both did recently and go, actually, I'm going to rotate these defensive guys against Norwich. That's the one that I can plug it with, play Malangsar, for example.
Yep. Something I do like with data like this as well is you can often compare when there's a new manager come in, the difference in the kind of teams. So Newcastle are a good example. So Newcastle's season data 16th, nothing too exciting there. But over the last 4, 5th on the table. So, okay, Ticker, they're 3rd. They've had really nice fixtures. But it didn't matter under Steve Bruce if they had nice fixtures because they were conceding chance after chance every game. No clean sheets, I don't think, until how joined or something like that. But now the data indicates they've improved massively in this regard. Everyone thought they were going to improve massively in their attack, but it's the defence actually where we can see the kind of biggest improvements in these numbers. Shah scored a goal, Fraser assist, could be an option, maybe.
It's Share, as I got corrected.
Yeah.
Oh, is it Share? My apologies.
Fabian Share the love.
Fabian Share.
I mean, I've just punted Fraser, so I think he's decent. I think he's the outstanding one. St. Maximin's annoying, isn't he? Because I think a few more would have been of interest to him if people had known that he was obviously going to be available for the double, and it looks like he's still doubtful for the game tomorrow night. I think defensively, ironically, if he'd have stayed fit, I think we'd actually be at the point right now, even despite his price, we'd all be talking about Kieran Trippier right now.
Yeah.
It would be really... And if he gets back available and they do land with a Gameweek 36 double, you could be potentially... He's one like wildcarders near the end, could look at and maybe go, I'm steaming into him, 0.5% owned live ownership at the end with a double and some decent fixtures. I think Share... Yeah, I agree with you, as would be the one. I want to say he's 4.4. He's obviously a threat from set pieces. He might even possibly be on the penalties. He took a couple towards the end of last season. You might remember one trickled over the line at Fulham in game week 38, although I suspect would be on them. It would be Share. Kraft is no guarantee of staying in the team over Manquillo. It's a shame Manquillo's not in the team because I think Manquillo's a better player than Kraft, and Manquillo's obviously only 3.9. But I think Bruce is just rewarding good performances at the moment. That's why Bruno Gomes isn't playing yet. He's rewarding the midfield three.
Don't bring Bruce into this.
Bruce?
Yeah, don't bring him into this.
I need to have
Sorry, as you've just lost all your Newcastle fans.
You knew what I meant. So when I edit the pod, the amount of random names I drop in every podcast.
Here I am trying to big him up, and James name drops Steve Bruce.
You all knew what I meant.
It's basically, if you think about it, as from the start of the season, a completely changed back line, right? I know now Trippier's out, but Trippier came in, Dan Burn came in, Cher didn't start the start of the season, Dubravka wasn't fit for the start of the season. You're basically talking about changing the entire defence. And so, it's no surprise that more recently they've been better when it's a completely different.
Dan Burns made a big difference as well.
Who
they signed from us, which he's a quality player. But just to put it into perspective, I mean, again, this is with the caveat that they're 3rd best on the ticker, so they've had really good fixtures. But their 90 minutes per big chance conceded is as good as Man City over the season. So they're even it's Newcastle, right? It's still over those matches, they're still not conceding big chances. They clearly have tightened up. Looking the other way, looking at Brighton. So Brighton were a 4th over the season. Like obviously, defensive numbers are really good. Slipped to 11th now in terms of minutes per XG conceded, and we've had the 2nd best fixtures over the last 4, according to the ticker. So again, this is where the stats can just show how big a drop off a team can kind of have. Looking at minutes per big chance conceded, it's gone from 59.3 to 32.7. So we're conceding 3 big chances a game, which is something that we just weren't doing, before this kind of run of really bad results that we've had. So that indicates to me we're a team to target at the moment, and Spurs and Liverpool have got us.
If Adam Webster's still out. So if you look at those last 4 games, Webster has missed the last 3. The one before was obviously Manchester United away, in which case Dunk obviously got sent off. So that had a heavy impact in terms of the numbers, shots, etc. they would have conceded late in the game. You've won 1 game in 13 played without Webster this season. With Webster in the team, you're basically a top 4 team, mate.
I think that's maybe a bit of a push, but I do rate Webster very highly.
Go and look at the stats, mate.
I'm with you, but to call us a top 4 team with or without Webster is maybe pushing it a little bit.
No, I'm saying statistically you perform, and by the way, those challenges have not been great over the season, but if you averaged out Brighton's points with the games that Webster's played, you would be in and around that position.
Could you
mate.
Could you not use stats to spin a narrative, please, James? I find that really offensive.
I'm just leveling the balance, mate.
It is a shame with Brighton. So I thought we could really push on this season and have a comfortable 10-ish finish, but it looks like we're going to kind of just tread water, I think. I mean, maybe Webster back will make a massive difference, but it's still our attack where I think we got the big, and we'll come on to attack in a bit. Just finally, Everton, they're the bottom of all the teams with a double game week this season for defensive data. I would say that performance against Spurs is one of the worst performances I've ever seen in the Premier League from a team. I mean, Lampard was saying that Anthony Gordon was the only positive in it. I mean, he looked like he was trying a bit, but there wasn't any real quality from him that I saw in that match.
He was getting taken out a lot.
Well,
Spurs
yeah.
were targeting him.
Yeah, because he was the only one that looked like he gave a shit, basically. I don't know how Everton are just such a difficult... I mean, they've got the double, then they've got a good run, but I just find it really hard to...
It's probably not a good run, is it? But the double is attractive. That's what I've said about Pickford. Wolves, let's be honest, are shot shy going forward. Yes, Newcastle are doing well, but actually, as you said, it's the defensive numbers that are stacking up and is where the real improvement is. Wood hasn't scored yet. St. Maximin, who knows whether he'll turn up or not. So Everton's actual double coming up, Wolves, Newcastle at home, is not bad at all. It's the fixtures afterwards are obviously more of a concern, but as said, they might have more doubles drop in there. Their performance Monday was, it was disastrous. I thought they were right till we scored, actually. For 10 minutes or so, they were half decent. I think they got into a full sense of security where Tottenham let them have the ball for 10 minutes and they went, oh, this is all right, we're not used to this. And then they just, every time we counted on them.
I know. Yeah.
They were horrendous.
Can you think of a worse performance than that, Suj?
Well, regular listeners to our show know my memory for football isn't great, but Southampton getting turned over quite a few times in recent memory. Those performances weren't great because they kind of sort of capitulated.
Don't say the score.
No, I won't. And I'm sure some of the performances from the likes of Ipswich and stuff back in the day when they got some real kickings as well were not good. But yeah, obviously James was at the game on Monday, so I'm going to take his word for it that Everton were horrendous.
To be honest with you, we only played well for the first 20 minutes of the second half, in my opinion. We just countered really well in the first half. I think we could have won 7 or 8-0 without trying, and we're not the best team in the league, let's be honest. So Everton, they had a horrendous night.
Do they go down?
Yeah.
I think these next two
it's on the cards.
Are massive. I think they'll be all right because the home games across what they've got left. I mean, I even look at things like Brentford at home in 37. They've still got Palace to go there, Leicester at home. Their home games, I feel like, even if they perform averagely, as in kind of mid-table home form, will probably be enough, I think. But the back four... right now is probably the worst defence in the league. Yes, I'm still considering buying a goalkeeper, actually.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about
do you know the other thing with Everton, while we're talking on defence as well, is they were that bad they made Matt Doherty a possible FPL option.
Oh, I'm not hanging that. That's best right wing back in the world you're talking about there.
Well, can I just say, we talk about player data in a second, but Stats called Matt Doherty ages ago. He's been top of the list of minutes per expected goal involvement for a few weeks, purely just down to that nailed on-ness, which he may well have. Now, and I'm going to get I'm going to pick your brains about him, James, in a second, because he's
just break everyone's arm and say no.
Don't do it.
No, watch to the end.
Let's take a look at some attack data. So over the season, top 2 teams, Liverpool, Man City. Minutes per XG non-penalty, 39.5, 45.7. So Liverpool are just way ahead. And then City sort of just below them. And then it drops off quite a lot. United are next, 60.1. So they are creating chances. They're just not that good at converting them.
Conceded more goals than Burnley is part of the story, isn't it?
Oh, that's not good, is it? Then it's Spurs, then it's Chelsea, then it's Arsenal. I don't think there's any massive surprises in the season data. Looking at the last 4, I mean, Southampton are still right up there. I mean, 4th. Over the last 4, despite being 15th on the ticker. So again, this is where you can take note of things like this. Tough run of fixtures for Southampton, but 4th on the attacking data. They're creating lots and lots of chances in difficult fixtures. So you would hope when they've got easier fixtures, they would continue doing well.
How was they that low on the tick when they've had Norwich and Everton at home in the last 4?
In the last 4, have they?
Yeah, at Norwich at home 27, Everton at home 26, Villa away and United away are the other two.
You can blame my calculations for that then.
I'm not trying to stitch you up here, Az.
Well, they've had United, so United puts them up, even though United are...
And it was Tottenham before that as well.
Ticker-wise, United are high, and then it's Spurs before that. So it's 1, 2, 3. No, it only goes up to United. Yeah, I mean Everton attacking-wise are quite high as well because it's Everton. They're not because it's done. You can sort it by defence and attack.
Okay.
So Everton attack-wise actually feature quite okay. It's their defence that massively lets them down. But 15th is low. That was the calculation I got anyway. I'll double check it. Let's have a look at other teams. Newcastle, 11th. So not massive improvements from Newcastle. God, I mean, they were 17th over the season, gone to 11th. Now, I mean, are you happy with Fraser?
Yeah, I mean, look, another double to come. It's certainly not my priority to obviously move him on this week. There was a doubt about him, but I think he's available now for the game tomorrow night, isn't he? So he will stay for the moment. The way I'm set up, where I'm probably going with a back five, things like Tottenham away in 31, I can probably bench him. And then if he hangs around for me, depending on what he shows in the next few weeks, I've got probably Wolves at home 32, Norwich away 34. Which aren't too bad in terms of my setup. So, and also as me and Suj were discussing earlier in the week, actually at his price value, I mean, it is acceptable to bench him rather than kind of force it out at 5.3.
Yeah, I like Fraser. I like this like Fraser and Burn dynamic that's going on now with like little and large, and they're taking all photos of them like standing.
It's like intentionally they put them out together when they come out, don't they? Someone's taking the mickey every game.
I quite like that. A team not doing well over the last 4 is Leicester. They're in 16th. So we've seen a bit of an upturn in their defence, 2 clean sheets in the last 2. But right down the list in terms of the attacking numbers, and that's, they've played Leeds, for example, you'd expect them to be doing well against. Suj, they've arguably got the best game in 30 against Brentford at home. Are you looking at any of their assets?
Again, this is like how you spin stats, right? So Leicester... with and without Vardy are basically like Brighton with and without Adam Webster, aren't they, really? They don't win any games without Jamie Vardy at all. It's no coincidence that he's been available in the last 2. Obviously, came off the bench in the first one. Leicester won 2 games on the trot. So you could spin it and look at the stats and say, yeah, they're particularly low, and quite rightly, because they've been pretty average for a long period of time. But Vardy being back, I think, changes.
Well, he's not back. Everything. He's out.
Or is he out again?
He's out again. He's injured again.
Fit again.
It's the perfect spin of the narrative because
well then forget about it.
For us free hitters, it is the worst news today because, and interestingly, it did make me look today at not free hitting in game week 30 because I think for free hitters, Vardy would have been a lock, and because of other priorities, I don't think many non-free hitters would have been able to get to him without taking quite a number of hits to get him in and then probably immediately back out as well because they go to United in 31, I think. 3 to 4 weeks,
3 to 4 weeks. Yeah.
That for me really rules out a lot of Leicester. I had big eyes for Jamie Vardy coming out the other side of game week 30. There's no way I could get to him before because of the double game week players that were priority, but after 30, I really was eyeing that up. I can't see myself wanting Lookman's, Barnes's, Madison's of the world without Jamie Vardy there.
The trouble is they're all improved by Vardy. That's exactly the main thing, isn't it? It's not just the like, do we get Vardy or not? It's now like Barnes, for example. He had such a good game against Leeds, and that was because for the first 50, 60 minutes when Vardy was on the pitch, he was just dragging players out of position. He was letting Barnes like maraud down the left. Like Daka's a good quality striker, but has obviously different abilities to what Vardy has. So I just wonder if we're going to see that same impact on someone like that.
They're good ones for free hitters though, potentially, aren't they? Nacho or Daka. Like if you know which one's going to play.
I think you've got to. You've got to target. You've got to have 3. I think you've probably got to have 3 attacking.
Yeah. So I mean,
players, right?
In my mind right now, I'd be thinking because clearly now Vardy's injured, money is going to be no issue for free hitters. Obviously, even if you go Kane's son, I mean, where else are you even going to spend the money?
It's so
I'm looking at if Ricardo Pereira is fit, would be of interest. Then one of Madison, Barnes, then one of Iheanacho, Daka. And to be honest with you, I won't even think about it till next Friday after they've played the second leg against Rennes. Is for me, it's a waste of time even thinking about it till afterwards. No, okay, I probably want defender, midfielder, attacker. Make the decision right before deadline.
Yep, agreed. And the final teams I want to talk about is Everton. Everton are crap attacking wise as well. Just for anyone considering their defence is awful, but their attacking wise stats are much better. 15th on the table, 12 best fixtures. And we mentioned really hard to know to go to. Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, Gray.
It's just avoidable at the moment. It's going to be a hotter conversation. I can almost guarantee it in the next sort of 3 or 4 game weeks. And yeah, maybe Calvert-Lewin, once he gets some fitness up, might look like he's attainable again. But I think, to be honest, with their financial situation, I think both players will leave in the summer. So
there's rumours around a points deduction, isn't there?
It won't be this season. It won't be. But we covered it on a pod we did back in December that they were right on the edge, and basically they would have to sell at least one of those 2 forwards this coming summer to stay within it. So I think they'll probably be all right. The financial results are due out next couple of weeks, and I'm pretty certain they wouldn't get a points deduction this season at this stage.
Nervy times for the Toffees fans. Right, player data. Let's try and find some gems. So this is player data over the season. Again, filtered by minutes per XGI, non-penalty. Look who's at the top. What a surprise. It's Salah. He's just not going to be usurped from that. 19 goals, 11 assists. Crazy return. Jota's next in second, 12 goals. Mane's in fourth with 12 goals. I mean, you look at those three, you look at how many ridiculous goals they've got between those three, and then you add in like Diaz and Firmino and the goals they've got, and it's just crazy. Kane in 10th, but the man that we all want to talk about, come on James, it's Matt Doherty. He's in 12th over the season. When he plays, he delivers. One goal, 4 assists now.
Oh man, I need to go and pop some popcorn for this bit.
I mean, he is. I can't remember. Well, I can remember. We've seen this before. We've seen a player dead in the water, right? We saw it loads of times last season. We saw it with like Lingard, with Stones, with players who were just completely cast out and have managed to kind of work their way back in. But Doherty's what, 31? Is he, or 30, 31, something like that? He looked like Spurs fans hated him. The hate for Matt Doherty every time he played was unreal.
Do you know why, Az?
Why is that, James?
Because he's absolutely horrendous. like honestly, terrible, mate. It didn't matter whether it was that. The thing is, these other players like Aurier and Emerson, they got better in the fans' eyes every time Doherty played. It was like, take him back out, stick these other guys back in. Then they'd come back in, you'd be like, oh, I better give Doherty another go. I think we spoke about it on the Patreon pod we did today in terms of, and he has been abysmal. I generally have called him not even a professional footballer on what I've seen of him, just completely.
You're not the only Spurs fan that I've seen.
No, I know I'm not the only person who got so because we watch the team every week and we could generally see he's a player who's played honestly in and I think you can see it a little bit more now over the last few games. Where even first 15 minutes at Middlesbrough was good. I think the goal at Leeds has really helped his confidence with, okay, I can provide some use here. And his one great use has always been he's running in behind, which is that's what makes him an FPL asset of interest. It's not always great crossing ability or his long range shooting, or he's actually that he'll get into the positions where he can be an interesting FPL asset for you. I think he wasn't helped when he signed that Mourinho wanted to play him similarly to how he'd been playing Aurier the season before as this right back who basically in possession, the left back would tuck in and he would just fly up the pitch as a right winger and stay there. So it would become like a 3-5-2 in possession. But then Tottenham got the opportunity when they asked for Bale to get Reguilon. And obviously Reguilon is such an up and down player. You don't want to restrict him. So Doherty, when he did play, did often end up playing quite defensively in a back four and looked abysmal. That said, I've just watched the last couple of months of him playing in his correct position, and when he has played, he's been useless. But since the goal against Leeds, I think that gave him a bit of confidence. And to be honest, I thought it was man of the match Monday night. He was absolutely brilliant. And I don't want him, and this would be the same for all Tottenham fans, I don't want Doherty to be bad. I want him to be good, because I've watched is rubbish play at right wing back for the last few years. So, please maintain this stock. From an FPL perspective, honestly, if anybody wants to buy him, I will not put you off at this stage, because he's an amazing price. I think the fixtures on paper are probably not as bad as they look. As you spoke about Brighton, I actually think the Manchester United matchup is probably quite well suited to Tottenham as well. He obviously covers you game week 30. Can I promise you that he plays Manchester United, Brighton and West Ham? No, I can't. And by the way, this will be the case with Tottenham wingbacks under Antonio Conte for forever, because of the sheer volume of work that they have to get through. That said, he's definitely on the display Monday night, earned the warrant to be called first choice. I'm fairly certain he will start at Manchester United on Saturday. I'm fairly certain he will start at Brighton next Wednesday and give you the double as long as he stays fit. And he probably will play against West Ham. Other side of the international break, I don't know. Conte's, he really does like a mood swing, doesn't he? So he very quickly changed his mind. I mean, honestly, if we got battered at Manchester United at the weekend, you might never see Doherty again.
Yeah. Because
Conte just go, I've got to rip that up and do something different. But is he first choice at the moment? Yes. Will he start on Saturday? I see no reason why not. There is a little bit of feeling amongst Tottenham fans that in some of the more high-profile games, and I guess you can put Manchester United into that category, that Emerson will play, like Emerson played at Manchester City, for example. But then Doherty played ahead of Emerson, I think, when we played at Chelsea. So there has been a trend of Emerson playing, and Emerson has been first choice up to this point, playing the more high-profile games. Some Spurs fans still think that when Tottenham play against really threatening attacking teams, that Emerson might still play that position. But actually, to be honest, I would be disappointed if Doherty didn't play on Saturday now, and I don't think he can drop him.
Did you ever think you'd be saying that 6 weeks ago?
No. I didn't think I'd be saying that to you a week ago, mate. But listen, I'm delighted. I'm happy to put my hands up and say everything I've said previously was absolutely correct, but he's now a changed man and has shown that really there is a footballer in there. I'm delighted about it. Yeah, if you want to buy him. I might buy him myself, mate.
Suj, you buying him?
No. But that's not...
Not even after that?
No, I'm prioritising Andy Robertson, mate, and that's where I'm going this week for the double.
Hard to argue against that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still not. I know exactly what James is saying. I still think that Conte will chop and change the right backs and play Emerson in certain games as well. And if Doherty has a couple of blanks, people will be bombing it out as quickly as they're going to be flocking to him this week as well. I'm with James. If people want to buy him, I don't think it's a particularly bad move. He's got all the underlying stats and the performances in the last couple to warrant it. Yeah, but it's not one for me.
I actually think for the majority of people, it's actually a good signing at the moment for most people's teams, particularly those running through the 30.
There's actually only 2 players in the league that have a better minutes per point than Matt Doherty. And I will not surprise you who they are, but it puts him in some pretty illustrious company. It's Salah and Mahrez. And then Matt Doherty. So
this is why I don't look at the stats, mate.
And I'm sure that will change at some point. But he has been incredible. Martinelli is on this. He's down in 21st. So he's the highest kind of Arsenal sort of player for this kind of metric. So Lacazette's in 29th, Saka's in 35th. Now Saka's a really interesting one because Saka has got 8 goals, 6 assists, which is the best. He's the high scoring Arsenal player. He's their best player by a country mile. I mean, you compare him to Lacazette, for example. I don't like to slate footballers because they're all significantly better than I am, obviously. But Lacazette is poor. I think he is a genuinely poor striker. And I think he's injured.
2 of the last 10, though.
He has. He does a job.
And I know the majority of them have been assists, but it's not bad. I think he links the play well I think the best thing to do, our Arsenal correspondent, Adam Pritchard, 35, who said this, is like, stop judging him as a striker. He's linking the team, exactly. Dropping in like an attacking midfielder at the moment.
He does a good job. I wonder how many other players could do a very similar job in the Arsenal team and perform. Anyway, I'm not here to say, like I said. What I'm here to say is Saka is an interesting one because Martinelli, stats-wise, beats Saka. Not by a huge amount. Minutes per extra on penalty, 170.9. Saka 195.4. They've got exactly the same minutes per points, 15.7. Martinelli is the more kind of direct attacking player. Like, he's in the team to drive and shoot. Saka is so good in so many positions that you wonder where he could end up in match. He could fit at left back if they needed to. He could play at centre mid. He could play DM. He could play at centre back. I was saying to Gianni, I think the only position where someone's better than him is probably Ramsdale in goal. I reckon he's better than most of the Arsenal players in any other position. He's such a talented player. But FPL wise, do you think that hinders him a little bit? I mean, he's still the go-to Arsenal player to get though, right, Suj?
Well, the thing I get what you're saying with the stats with Martinelli. Had he not got himself sent off, he might well have made his way into my squad. Like, Martinelli is the same price as Ryan Fraser.
Yeah.
And then you've got Saka, who is a little bit cheaper, but let's say same ballpark price as Saint Maximin, who I know is a different position, but let's just say you'd still kind of gravitate towards, if you could, Saint Maximin or Saka over Martinelli or Ryan Fraser. But then you do have to kind of factor in the fact that he's 5.3 million. So if you're happy to bench Ryan Fraser at 5.3 million, you'd probably be happy to bench Martinelli at 5.3 million as well. So I think it's one of those, if you can afford Saka, yeah, like, Saka's the right way to go. And if you can't, and you're happy to bench that player when you're not comfortable, they've got a slightly trickier fixture. I mean, Arsenal still have rearranged games against Liverpool and Chelsea coming up, don't they? So you might then think, you know what, at 5.3 million, Martinelli's benchable. I still think Saka, pay the extra and get Saka.
Because if I had the choice, I'd pay the extra and get Saka. If I needed the money to maybe I'm wildcarding or free hitting and I needed that extra money, James, you think that the downgrade to Saka to Martinelli is huge and you just shouldn't consider it?
I think you're summing it up perfectly. As I think, you'd pay the extra for Saka is worth doing. I mean, at the moment he's flying. You can see the confidence off him and stuff at the moment. He's become Arsenal's best player. But I also agree that if you're struggling for the finances, I think Martinelli is very interesting. I wouldn't actually even rule Odegaard out of the conversation either, by the way, if you're looking to save the money.
Just quickly, he does not feature well on this list. So Martinelli, out of all players, 21st, Saka 35th, Odegaard 88th.
All three of them scored at the weekend, though.
They did, but again, the problem with Odegaard as well is the role, right? Like, he dictates the play, but often not in the position that you want him to be in.
No, I personally would go Martinelli over Odegaard. Complete agreement. I think, just to go back on your point in terms of positioning, I think he's too good to move position now. The only way I see him move in position now is in a position where, quite often in games, say if they're chasing a goal in the last 10-15 minutes, they might shove him back to full back to get an extra body on the pitch forward wise. Otherwise, he's not moving position now. He's too good.
Yep. By the way, we're missing a crazy game with Madrid and PSG. Benzema scored a hat-trick.
Wow.
I know. Typical.
It's turned it around to 3-2 in Real's favour.
Yeah.
It's all right. We all captained Lewandowski last night. We're not
Oh, dear. Okay. George saying, as he's spouting nonsense about Saka, he's played right wing all season. He definitely hasn't, because I was there at the Emirates when they played Palace, and he was playing left back, right back, centre mid, everywhere. You know, he was class, and then he went off injured, and they lost or drew. No, they got lost.
There is one player missing off this table, I think.
Who's that?
It's my ginger from Sweden, mate, Kulusevski.
Yeah, well, he features somewhere in the next table. He's not he's not in the season data, but he does make an appearance in the last 6. So don't worry, he is coming. Just before we move on to that table, actually, just quickly on Everton, and I want to stop bashing the Everton drum, but again, it's, we're all trying to consider options. Calvert-Lewin's in 60th. Richarlison is 95th on this list, and Gordon is 124th. But like we're going to see in the next table, his rise under Lampard is very telling under the stats too. So basically, player data means don't consider any Everton players, but I might be able to make a case for Gordon in just a second. Just quickly, because I know that obviously we do a lot of stuff with expected data, I thought I'd just do a table on pure points over the last 6. So Harry Kane's got the most points over the last 6, 45. Can't spin any narrative here, Suj. This is just pure FPL points. Kane, 45. Van Dijk, 44. Robertson, 43. Pope, 43. Pope, the same points as Robertson, and 2 behind Kane. Then De Bruyne, Fraser, Ben Mee, Cash, Coutinho, and Cher. I got the pronunciation right on that. So I mean,
Ben Mee, he must have scored a goal or something to be well up there.
He did, didn't he? He got the goal in the double.
Yeah, wet.
Yeah, interesting list. A lot of players that you wouldn't, you kind of think, and then you see players like me and Cher. I mean, Cher's
just
crazy.
clarify that I was wet because I was in Burnley, not because Ben scored a goal.
I'm going to edit out your explanation of that and just put that in the thing.
I think I've done well so far, mate.
Ben Mee makes James wet. Yeah, here first. God, less said about that, the better. Player data last 6 then. Regulon's top. This is where stats, you can spin a narrative. Look how great an option Regulon is. He's top of the player data last 6. Well, he came on for about 30 seconds and scored, so it's not entirely surprising that he's top of this. Then you've got Mane and Salah. Again, they're just relentless. They're just at the top of every list like you look at. What I have got is... I haven't got Kulusevski on this list. It must be on the midfielder table. Yeah, he doesn't even feature in the top 30. You're impressed with him, though. Let's talk about him now anyway. Okay, so he's not in the top 30 for minutes per XGI non-penalty over the last 6, but, I mean, he's a hell of an upgrade on Nora, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, completely different player. And actually, to be honest, when Conte first came in, Lucas did great in terms of his direct running. Actually, the first probably sort of 6-8 games under Conte, Lucas was our best player. Decky, as he's known to Spurs fans, a nickname from Sweden that apparently likes. I know everyone's going to call him Kulu. He's a very cultured player, but he's kind of abnormal, I want to say, in the sense that he doesn't have great pace for what is essentially a winger. And he can look a little bit lethargic in terms of his body movement and stuff, but actually he presses really well. He's got good control. He's built up a real good link with Doherty. I think that's really important for Doherty at the moment in terms of he can play it into Kulusevski's feet, and Kulusevski's so comfortable. Give me the ball, fine. I'll give it back to you. I'll turn. I'll do whatever it is. Whereas Doherty's probably playing it into Lucas and knows actually what Lucas wants is to go, no, knock it in behind and I'll go after it for you. He's a great player, beautiful left foot on him. In my opinion, he should probably have more returns than what he's got because he should have put us in front that night at Burnley as well. So that's his one blank from his started games, and he really could have got the winning goal that night that possibly would have ended in a 9-10 pointer. So really, really cultured player, got a good link. He'll come off the flank and float into central, whereas he says himself that his best position is a number 10. And that front three's already built up a really good relationship. I think Kane likes him. Kane knows, you can tell with Kane, he knows if he can trust someone. Kane will ping it out to him, no problem. Just crack. I mean,
the reason he doesn't feature highly on this list, I think, is because his goals have been long range, right, or from angles in which you wouldn't expect him to probably score. But he's got that knack of being able to find the corner. I mean, the Leeds game, he scored in that, didn't he? And then
that's the only goal, isn't it? The other returns have been assists, haven't they?
That's right, yeah. And he also tested him at the same corner as well.
He scored at City, sorry.
Melee just managed to get down to. So he's not a player who is going to have tons of shots in the box, I don't think, and touch in the penalty area. But he's a player who, this is where I think the stats are deceptive, because he's so good at shooting from other areas that it kind of puts him up a bit. You need to watch him to fully appreciate just how good he is.
Yeah.
Suj, Son versus Kulu?
No, I already own Son, which was a budget decision over Harry Kane a couple of weeks ago. The goal against Leeds, and James and I were in the pub watching it together. The way he came in onto his left and just buried it, I saw enough in that I thought, okay, there's definitely a player in here. James didn't think he would start against Leeds, and that's not having a dig, James, but that stopped me wanting to go towards Kulu. Last week, again, he performed so well in that game. And James said, if I see what I think I'm seeing against Everton on Monday, that's the green light to go and get Decky or Kulu, as you want to call him. So for me, yeah. And the price, I mean, you raised your eyebrows, James, when the price was first announced at 6 million.
Before we even saw it.
There might be some value to be had here. And the fact that he's crept up to 6-1 and probably will go up 6-2, people will keep flocking towards him. Everything about him, I think, smells of FPL points. Assists for Kane, goals, the lot.
Interestingly, I still maintain, Suj, that I don't think he would have started that Leeds game. Lucas Moura got an injury the day before. Because I think with the amount of games we had in quick succession, I think he was thinking, again, Lucas's direct running against Leeds would be particularly handy. That decision got taken away because Lucas got injured in training the day before. But he's a little bit similar to with Doherty at the moment, where okay, you've got Bergwijn on the fringes, you've got Lucas on the fringes. But there is no reason to take Kulusevski out of the team. And it's interesting, actually, that he's basically completed all the games as soon as he started. He's played 90 minutes in all 4 games. He's not even getting taken off. So Conte obviously already really trusts him. He actually wanted to take him to Inter when he was at Inter as well. So he's a player he's followed for a really
young,
long
right? He's
time.
what, 2021, is he?
He likes.
Yeah,
He's 21.
Yeah.
But he doesn't look it, does he?
No.
He looks like he's more late 20s or something.
He's going to be elevated. I mean, I think it's in some ways similar to the Saka and Martinelli thing, in that I think you go for Son if money's no object and you've got no problem. But, you know, I'm seeing teams without Son and Kulu in there, and I'm thinking, actually, I don't think that's a huge downgrade. You know, I would expect Son to outscore Kulu. That's what you pay the extra, 4 million for. But it's 4 million. You can do a lot with that money. And I think Kulu's a good shout.
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, Saka and Kulusevski is probably... a lot of the people who are probably buying Kulusevski perhaps already have Saka, but I think actually in terms of making a choice of which one to buy, I think it's very close. You could probably toss a coin on which one. Both players probably are going to be near the 8 million mark next year, aren't they?
Yep, absolutely.
They're not going to be the price they are now.
No. Well, Kulu at 6, I think rightly, you know, shown that he's making a mockery of that and should do it for the end of the season.
And there's no real midfielders in. And normally every year, someone at roundabouts the 8 million mark kind of really breaks out or goes into that bracket. It just doesn't feel like there is. When you've got the likes of
Foden
Saka,
is it,
Jota,
right?
I guess, is the one, isn't he, really?
Jota and Foden, I'd say.
Available. Yeah.
No, there isn't really anyone else. No. We're at 1 hour 45, so we are way behind schedule because we've been talking so much. So I've got some player data. I'm going to go through this a bit quicker than normal because I want to talk about our predictions and our teams going forward. And I'll try and keep this around 2 hours. Maybe we'll go to like 2 hours.
Are you right to stay up, Suj?
Ready, mate. Suited and booted.
Before we came on, I think you said to me, is this going to be 2 hours? And I was like, I reckon it'll be a bit short today. I've cut out a few segments. I think we'll be fine. No, we're heading to 2 hours. Let's do keepers quickly. We've already talked about Pickford to death. Last 6, filled by minutes per points. Kepa's top, but obviously doesn't play anymore. Then you've got Alisson, Mendy, Dubravka then next in 4th. He's the second keeper that I'm probably going to go for on the wildcard, 4.4. I think it's a good price for him. Then you've got Ramsdale down in 7th as well.
Who's your first keeper?
Ramsdale.
Ramsdale's first keeper.
Yeah, Ramsdale will be first, and then Dubravka. Do you think that's the best combo going forward? I mean, we kind of tried to make a bit of a case for Pickford. I know, Sud, you love Sarr. Anyone else you want to mention, James?
In terms of combinations at the moment, it doesn't work for the immediate. But I don't mind actually Pope and Foster as a combination to potentially carry you through quite a long way.
That is, a lot of games.
Well, I'd tell you part why I say that as well is Everton have got games to rearrange with both of those two teams, and there's every chance they'll land not in 33, 36 or 37. They might land in 32, 35, for example. And that combination would obviously cover you both off. And Burnley, Pope can return well in any game, as we know, as we've seen. But, I mean, you wouldn't go that right now with the doubles. I think if I was wildcarding now, I mean, it would certainly be... I think I would go Dubravka. And I'm leaning to that as well. Like, I can go Dubravka in for Foster as my second. Play him this week. Maybe go back to De Gea in goal for 31, 32. Play Dubravka 34. I'm looking at something like that, maybe, rather than Pickford. But I would be interested in Pickford as well. I think ideally the best bench...
You can't get enough of him, can you?
For me, in terms of the keepers, it's the best double this week, and I can't get it out of my head knowing that there's more, and I may end up scrambling for it. Reality is, if Everton suddenly if I'm free hitting in 33, and Everton suddenly land with doubles in 32, 34, I'm interested, and I have to be, most irrespective of the fixtures, and that's what I can't get out of my mind is that possibility. But I think for most people, the simple place to be wildcard right now would be something like Ramsdale and Foster or Dubravka.
Dubravka, yeah.
Can't get Pickford out of your mind. What a lovely soundbite that is. I like the expected goals prevented metric. It gives a bit of an indication of how well a keeper's performing. Top is Pope, 2.9 over the last 6. Bottom remains Meslier, 5.9, and that's probably one of the reasons why Leeds are in so much trouble. Not only do they concede chances, but their goalkeeper isn't saving anything either, which is not particularly good. combination, although he is making a save every 19.1 minutes, which I believe is the highest in the league. So, God, there's only so much that he can do.
Pickford's just behind that.
He is just behind that. Yeah, I mean, neither of them can keep clean sheets, but they are making lots of saves, so that's kind of all you need. Defenders, we've touched on some of these already. You've got Trent in fifth, some very odd names, 1 to 3, Regular on top. Ake features really highly on this, must have had a really good chance. Simicast, I left him in. Okay, Ake's never going to be a player for us, but Simicast as well. When Liverpool have needed him, he's delivered, and when FPL guys have needed him, particularly in the first few game weeks, he's delivered. He's a great replacement for Robertson, and the reason I left him in is because he's a great replacement for Robertson, which is a bit of a worry. You know, the further Liverpool go into the Champions League, I think, you know, Trent has got no competition at right back, but Robertson has got a very good player able to deputise if he ever needs a break. So one thing to maybe put you off Robertson, although I'll still be getting him. So I wouldn't worry too much.
The thing is, if Robertson gets injured, we'll just buy Shimikat straight away.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly
right?
Cheapest player in the game, 3.7.
I mean, yeah, it's incredible, really. Obviously, Gomez played right back in the league win against Norwich recently, but there isn't a natural right back cover. You're absolutely right.
No.
The debate's always been, right, as who's the third Liverpool to add to Salah and Trent.
Yep.
And Diaz joining adds more rotation to the strikers, which is why I'm leaning towards Robertson being the third Liverpool player over going back to Jota or even Luis Diaz. But you are right. I mean, they've got cover there in Shimikas, but I think Robertson will play enough of the games to justify it. And
as long as the title race carries on, there's you know, and it will do. I can't see any reason why they'll drop.
Well, that's it, isn't it? If a gap does open up of 9 points, say City beat Liverpool in 32, and there's been results varying between now and then, and they're both still in the Champions League. The eggs go in the Champions League, surely, for both teams, even.
Yep, possibly. But I still like Robertson, especially going up to then. But yeah, I think. Yeah, like you say, you never kind of know what's going to happen. For people looking for Arsenal cover for the double, Gabriel is highest. Tierney's really dropped off from an attacking sense. He's playing the majority of games now. It seems to be not getting injured as much, but not really offering much in ways of goal threat.
There's a good reason behind it. It's a spoiler for our pod tomorrow. Basically, the impact is Cedric playing at the moment rather than Tomiyasu. So right. Cedric's bad defensively. So rather than Tierney being the fullback that pushes on, they're doing it the other way around at the moment. So when Tomiyasu comes back in, that might change. Although there's a note that Xhaka's playing higher forward than he normally does. So that's filling part of the space. But that might change again once Tomiyasu comes back. So while Tomiyasu's out, yeah, don't expect too much from Tierney. But then Tomiyasu's been doubtful like every week for a month or so it could quickly change.
So that's amazing. And again, that's the kind of analysis that the stats don't tell you, which is exactly why it's good to have a mix of both things. Because if Tomiyasu is out for an extended period of time, we know not to buy Tierney because we can see from the stats and from what you've just said. I mean, would you go Gabriel then over Tierney if you were going to pick one?
No, I would still go. I own Kieran Tierney as well. I bought him over the December period. I would still go Tierney because I'd think, well, as and when it changes, it might look really good again. Would be my take. So, is Gabriel worth 5.3? No. I mean, arguably, because of that situation, if you specifically want something for the double, arguably you go back to White.
That's just 4-5. No goal threat though whatsoever with him. Yep. Suj, can I talk you into 16th or 17th on the defenders list? That would be Seamus Coleman and Ben Godfrey. Fancy you those?
Are we doing it as a forfeit bet for something? Because that's the only way you're going to get me into Coleman or Godfrey or Michael Keane or anybody else that you want to sell me.
But what I did find very interesting about Coleman and Godfrey being 16th and 17th is look who's 20th for expected goal involvement non-pen. And that's Robertson, who you are looking at. And, I mean, we don't expect to see Robertson that low. I mean, you know, when you've got players like Livramento, Min's expected goal involvement, 182.9, and Robertson's like 3 times worse than that.
Yeah, as Emerson Royal was 12th. Like, put this one in a bin, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
4 assists for Robertson is the best out of all defenders, by the way. But the underlying stats aren't amazing, that's all I'm saying. So don't be too surprised if he doesn't return. But you get the clean sheets anyway. Midfielders, we've talked about Mane and Salah. We talked about Son. We talked about Jota, their 1st, 2nd, 11th and 13th. Your mate Ryan Fraser, 17th, James, on this list. Saka, 22nd. 2 players creep onto this who've got doubles. Gross looks like the Brighton midfielder of choice. Sorry to both of you. Sorry to both of you with Trossard, but maybe Pascal Gross is the one. I wouldn't go anywhere near him, and I've got him on my wall. So, you know, he's really not the player he was when he first signed for Brighton with the amount of chances he could create. 30th is Kulu. So right down the bottom of the list, but his minutes per points at 12.5 is really, really strong. Look at Foden, for example, 21.3. You know, he's right up there. So we won't go into too much more about him, but he does do well when he plays. Although Harvey Barnes, he's someone I'm looking at getting. His minutes per points is 12.3 over the last 6. So I don't know if there's a huge amount in it between them for that 30 fixture, especially given the Barnes got Brentford. 2 forwards.
I would think with a Leicester midfield. With that 1 week, I think which one's more likely to go off big? I think it's probably Barnes is where I'd want to go,
or Maddison if he's fit, but
potentially.
I worry about Maddison with this hip injury. He seems to have had it.
But then obviously if Vardy's out now as well, you got Tielemans probably batting the pens as well, isn't it? It just muddies the waters, doesn't it?
It does, it really does. Yeah, who's going to take him for
It'd be Tielemans, wouldn't it?
Tielemans, yeah, it must be. Not on the list, but maybe a good option as well. Forwards, I mean, this is always the most depressing part of this pod because the forwards are all just so rubbish. I mean, I'm probably switching to a 4-5-1 after. I mean, I've got I'll show you my wildcard in a bit. I've got Kane, Gelhardt, and Broja, and I've got no faith in Broja. I know everyone seems to love him, but I just don't. I think he's the best option at 5-5, but I don't think he's that great an FPL pick. I still stand by that. Everyone says I tweeted that in hindsight, but I'm not having that. I've said that for quite a few weeks now.
Yeah, I'm with you, Az. I call him Brodger the points dodger, just because he looks good, and we're all going to agree that he's a hell of a player and he's got unbelievable potential. But sometimes in FPL, you own players for the periods they don't score points, and it just happens to be bad luck. I feel like James Maddison's one of those for me. Whenever I've owned him, he's never scored points, and I think Broja's going to be one of those as well. That whenever I own him, he's just not going to score any bloody points.
I mean, Broja has a worse minutes per point than Watkins, and Watkins doesn't get any points. Just thought, James, you fan of Broja?
I was always going to say, I had a number of people tell me as soon as mentions Broja, you meant to dig him out. It's
Come on then, dig me out.
No, what I would say is in terms of forget the FPL for the moment, I really rate Haaland massively.
Absolutely.
I think he's got a little bit of everything. He was outstanding at Tottenham a month or so ago. Look, he's in my team at the moment, but ironically, I might even bench him this week. I feel like I don't feel like he's going to go and get me a hat trick or anything like which you don't expect from a 5.5 million or so forward in any case anyway. But he is definitely the best down now. It's a shame. The one that got injured was a real shame. Was Adam Eder at Norwich? Who got injured.
Absolutely.
Then you could have gone Gelhardt, Eder. That's the way I was looking to go as well. It's not necessary. You might as well pay a bit extra for Broja. Use him, don't use him, however you feel about it. I do think he's a great talent. And the beauty with Saints is as well, like they can perform well against the good sides as well. So if he does look like he's got a rough fixture, I think you can still go with him and play him.
Yeah. Look at Pookie. He's bottom of this list in 30th. He's had 2 goals and 2 assists over the last 6, but he shouldn't have got anything according to this metric. He's worse than pretty much every other striker in the league. Lukaku, 29th, is literally unbelievable as well. He's getting limited minutes, but even when he comes on, he's not delivering.
Pookie's joint 5th highest scoring FPL forward? I mean, it just kind of sums up the season, doesn't it? That's actually, he's been consistent and done okay. He's like 5.8. You wouldn't go near it, would you?
The one thing I will urge people to not consider is Richarlison. And I mentioned him earlier, just how poor he is, but he's 24th out of forwards. He strikes me as the kind of player that I'm going to see people buying for this double and beyond, and they're going to regret it. He's going to be a Trossard for a lot of people. Calvert-Lewin I can see, getting better, but I mean, I look at Everton, I think, okay, you're in this relegation battle. Firstly, when you're 5-0 down, I can't think of a worse player to bring on than Dele Alli. Like, literally, he actually looked all right when he came on, did a couple of flicks and tricks and stuff, but he's not a player to kind of get you out of this mess.
Him and Kane both smashed each other, didn't they? It was
yeah. But Richarlison's got to be in that bracket as well. Like, God, you talk about United looking moody and petulant and shouting each other. I mean, Richarlison, I don't think I've ever seen him smile. That's when Everton were all right.
Really is moody. I won't repeat the comment we often use on our own pod, but the other problem with Richarlison is I have no idea where he's going to play.
No.
In the sense that is he back on the left? If Calvert-Lewin's not 100%, is he back through the middle? Could Gordon get dropped and he goes out the right? Could they go 4-2-3-1 and he plays as a 10? Lampard's comments after the game on Monday suggested that ideally he wants to play a back three but doesn't have the centre backs to do it. Is he then right up front with Calvert-Lewin in the front? So I really don't like playing players, but I'm not too sure where they're going to play either actually at the moment. And he is moody, and I think he knows he's leaving that football club in the summer as well. So
yeah,
if I had to go one of the two, I would go Calvert-Lewin, but I definitely will not be going for either.
Suj, any Everton strikers on the shopping list?
No, the one I would want to try and go to is Calvert-Lewin. But like you're talking about Az, right? It's down to squad structure. And I think I'm going to be playing 5-4-1 or a 4-5-1 in most weeks. And so my main striker, the one that I want to play week in, week out, it's got to be a Harry Kane or a more premium striker, not Calvert-Lewin. Yeah. And there's so much value in this midfield that some of the players that we talked about already on the pod and on the show, like 6.5 million in Saka's, Kulusevski's, Jared Bowen's, Rafinha's at that price in midfield. I don't think I'm going to be looking at Calvert-Lewin. Nah.
Isn't it reassuring though to see Kane top of this list? 5 goals, 1 assist. Must be reassuring for you, James. 7 big chances, conversion 52.2, which is only bettered by I think Mateta and Ivan Toney, although Ivan Toney's were penalties. So
yeah, since the Leicester game. And I think he had 10 shots that night, and it was everybody was. I think the majority of people watching the Man United game because they had double were away to Brentford, whereas we were meant to play Arsenal, so it was just a single. And obviously, the way that game ended was so dramatic that Kane's performance got completely forgotten. He was magnificent that night. He was as good that night as he was against Man City a couple of weeks ago, and you could feel it that he just everything for whatever reason had clicked. And ironically, he didn't have Kulusevski or Heung-min Son with him that night. But suddenly, Conte's worked on something where suddenly he's got the fitness back. He's got the interest back. Doesn't mean he won't still leave this summer. But he's at this minute, he is at his best again. As good as he's ever been at this moment right now. And for me, that makes him a priority. Like if someone said to me now, I'm buying one of Kane or Son, where do I go? Definitely Harry Kane right now. Take it while the going's good.
Yep. We talked about Lacazette a bit earlier in second. There's lots of people reporting that he's out of the double now.
Okay, I've not seen that.
So I guess the first question is, that is one less striker to consider. Well, secondly, why? And thirdly, does that impact the likes of Saka and Martinelli? Does it actually boost Martinelli a little bit? Because they don't have another striker. So does that mean Martinelli goes... I think it's like a false 9 type.
Yeah. I think that's something he's been looking at potentially trying in any case. And just
Martinelli has trained in that 9 spot as well. I wonder if that maybe they'll switch around a little bit.
Could do. Maybe Saka will get his positional move.
Yeah, I think it weakens them though. As much as I don't particularly like Lacazette, I think it does weaken them.
Smith Rowe's flagged at the moment, right? I don't know how, if it's one of these, will be ready by the time the double comes around.
I think he's had COVID.
Flagged.
I think he's had COVID, hasn't he?
So he should be ready to go. I'll be honest with you, that Lacazette injury sways me towards Martinelli over Saka. It does change my thinking a little bit, and I do think that Martinelli might be a more interesting option to go with.
So on Lacazette, it looks like Lacazette has posted a picture on Instagram or something similar where he's shown a picture of his foot, which has got a few scratches and cuts on, which appear to be tackles from Thomas Partey in training. I wouldn't read that as he's definitely out in any way. Actually.
So there's no actual reports or anything?
Not that I can see.
Okay, interesting. It's just, I wouldn't normally say anything, but there's been about 7 or 8 different people, I think, in the chat all mentioning it. So I thought I would just say. Right, okay, we're nearly there. So fixtures next. So we'll fly through these kind of as quickly as possible. What really struck me about this, James, was just how ridiculously similar your results are to Mark's.
Oh, wow, okay.
Not only did you predict 6
and
results,
I did go first, I'm fairly certain.
You all gave me separate Excel files, so there was no cheating going on. But you had 6 identical results out of these games to Mark. Yeah, interesting.
I would say great think alike and all that, but I don't think I should be in the same company as Mark, to be honest.
You can be this season, you're ahead of him. Brighton Liverpool first. We've all gone for a Liverpool win. Sorry, Dad. I always feel bad. My dad will be listening. I always feel bad when I predict Brighton to lose. Oh, 1,000 watching live, by the way. So we did hit 1,000. Now the Champions League's ended.
Smash a like.
Yeah, smash and like.
Hit the sub button.
We've all gone 2-0 except for Suj, who's gone 3-0. Thanks, Suj. But yeah, none of us expecting much there. Nah. Brentford Burnley. This one is maybe the most boring game I've
it's the
ever.
Garden Centre game as well.
It is definitely the Garden Centre game. I've gone 0-0. Mark's gone 0-0. James, you've gone for a 1-0 Brentford, and Suj has gone for a 1-0 Burnley. There you go. How's that for a mix?
I'd just add to that prediction is based on, I haven't got the knowledge on Ben Mee in terms of his fitness. If Ben Mee's back, I would arguably say 1-0 the other way.
Yeah, okay. United Spurs, interesting one. We've all gone for a Spurs win.
Wow.
Even though it's United Old Trafford.
The most surprising one out of the 4 is definitely me having some faith and confidence in our own team. I just think with the 3 at the back, I think the way United react in terms of transition, and that's what Tottenham will try and do. Tottenham will try and invite United on as much as United may want to do it to Tottenham. I can't see that being the case at Old Trafford. So Tottenham will invite United on. I think the space will be there on the counter, and the front 3 a handful for anybody at the moment, never mind them. So I think if we get it right, and by no means am I thinking it straightforward, it's a difficult game, but I think if we get it right on the counter-attack, I think we can win the game, yeah. Yep.
All of us predicting goals in this one anyway. You, Suj, and I have all gone for 2-1, Mark 3-2. Chelsea-Newcastle, all gone for a Chelsea win. These are easy, these predictions. Chelsea 2-1 for me, Mark 2-1. James gone for a 1-0, Suj a 2-0. Yeah, there's not much to say about it. It should be fairly routine. Even though Newcastle are playing well, the numbers are up, but you would still expect Chelsea to have enough time.
I don't see Newcastle scoring. I know both you and Mark have gone with 2-1s. I don't see Newcastle scoring.
The defensive data very much indicates they won't. I like Newcastle at the moment. There's just something about them that I think they could cause Chelsea problems. And Chelsea have got the Champions League game midweek. So I wonder if we're going to see a bit of rotation from some of their players as well. What's the score in that Lille game? Is it 2-0?
2-0 up, aren't they?
2-0.
And this is the home leg now, so...
Okay, yeah.
No, they're away next, Suj.
Oh, it's away next. So they won the home game, yeah. But they should be going through.
Yeah, you thought so. Everton Wolves. I was quite surprised by this. James and Mark both went for a 1-0 Everton.
Because we're both buying Pickford, isn't it?
Yeah, Suj went for a 1-0 Wolves. I went for a 1-0. That seems to me the most logical result. 2 teams really struggling at the moment. I think both teams would probably take a point at this point.
I don't think Everton can afford to be thinking that at this moment in time. I think I give Everton a chance in this game particularly because I just think Wolves, the kind of the expectation of the season have just died over the last 2-3 weeks ago. And to be honest, they could have been 3 or 4 down to Palace at half time at the weekend. Palace played really well. And then you've got Large coming out making these strange comments about Kai Hoover is obviously now injured. Johnny's probably going to have to play the position. He's 4.5 and potentially interesting. He's not fully fit yet, and there's a danger in that as well. So I wouldn't even be surprised when he came in the summer. We all thought he was going to play a back 4, and it's worked so well that he hasn't. I wouldn't be surprised if he changed it. But I think the benefit for Everton in this game is I just feel in the majority of games Wolves won't score.
Jimenez is off it. Jimenez is completely off it at the moment.
The fact that he's now been left out for consecutive games is concerning. I guess owners are obviously still keeping their fingers crossed that he obviously starts tomorrow night, which I think he probably will come back into the team. But no, I know it's sad. He's not because of what happened to him. Don't want to go bashing him or anything, but unfortunately he's not returned the same player.
No.
Neto's back in the team though, James.
Yep.
Really like him.
Neto is very interesting. Yeah.
Signed a new contract today as well till 2027.
Let's see. Suj, you're kind of like fighting the current because I think everyone's going off Wolves. everyone's going off their defenders, their attackers, everything. You're just like, yeah, I'm going to buy Sarr, bring him in,
Well,
play him.
No, I wrote. To say I wrote Wolves off at the start of the season is probably wrong, but I didn't have as high hopes for Wolves as maybe some people did based on their performance the last couple of years. New manager, not really sure how they were going to set up. They didn't really go crazy in the transfer market, although they don't ever. And they've really surprised me with how good they've been this season. Really surprised me. So maybe it's a case of I'm not going to write these off again like I did at the start of the season. But I think they could turn the corner at any moment and pick it up. Defensively, they just need a couple of good games where they'll keep clean sheets. We call 1-0 the Wolves score, right? They 0-0 at half time, 1-0 in the second half, job done.
Yeah.
I can see it happening again.
Don't lose the faith. That's the message from Suj on Wolves. The Wolves fans will be happy to hear you say that. I'll fly through some of these. Leeds, Norwich. We've all gone for a Leeds win. You and Mark have both gone for 3 goals scored for Leeds. Suj and I 2-0. So we're all backing Leeds to win this sort of fairly comfy, which is why many of us have got Rafinha. Southampton. We've all gone for a Southampton win. All 3 of you have gone for 2-1. I've gone for 2-0. I can't see Watford scoring, although I reckon a lot of people have got Dennis, and we're hoping he can as maybe a final send-off. We'll come to you on this one, Suj. West Ham v Villa.
What have you done there?
I know. Gone against your beloved West Ham. I've gone for a win.
What's actually going to happen, and everybody in the chat on YouTube is going to agree with me, is that we're going to beat Sevilla 3-0 tomorrow. Moyes is going to let the West Ham team get out on the sangria tomorrow night in Sevilla. They're not going to fly back on Friday as planned, miss the plane because they're still pissed on sangria. And then we're going to have to field the kids against Villa on Sunday.
And then Seville beat you 4-0 in the second leg.
Yeah, well, that's the West Ham way, isn't it?
We'll do a Pochettino because Poch let it slip with PSG today at Real, so we'll do a Poch for you, Jace.
But you're not convinced on them. Yeah, imagine it's a full strength West Ham side. You still think Villa do you over?
Just because of the midweek fixture that we've got tomorrow and the travel back, I think Villa are on good form. Coutinho is going to be pulling the string. It's going to be a tough game, and I think our mind's going to be elsewhere.
Yeah, it's a really difficult game for West Ham because it falls in the middle of the Seville game is huge for the football club, and afterwards it's Tottenham as well. So this is kind of there's a danger I think that this fixture can be the taken for granted. We'll beat Villa, and they've been much better the last few weeks.
If you lose this, you're going to struggle with top 4, surely.
We're going to struggle anyway.
Well, exactly. I know it's kind of over, right? If you lose this, I would have thought. Yeah. Arsenal Leicester. You've all gone for an Arsenal win. I've gone for a 2-2. Although Vardy out does change things. I did do this prediction before that Vardy news broke today. I think they're gonna probably struggle a bit now. Maybe I'll alter that to a 2-1 as well. Shame. I think Leicester have got a part to play in our seasons, given the amount of fixtures they've got. But you don't want to see them weakened. You want to see them getting stronger. They're defensively, I think they are going to be getting a bit stronger. But attacking wise about Vardy, it's tougher. Easy one, Palace City. We've all gone for a City win. James, you've given Palace a goal, which is very generous of you. I think they do tend to concede goals against Palace, don't they? It's one of their teams that.
To be honest, when City have a straightforward game, how many times have you seen them 3-0 up and they concede a goal with 2 minutes to go anyway? So I think that going to Selhurst not easy. I mean, they give Liverpool a proper fright a few weeks back, didn't they? So they'll give City a game at the weekend. I'll give them a shout at being in it.
You talk about surprise packages, Suj. I think Palace are mine. I thought they were going to be. I always tip them for relegation anyway because I hate them. But I genuinely did think they were going to struggle this year.
Can you explain to everybody why you hate them?
My dad does.
This silly motorway derby or something. Oh, what is it?
Just, why do you hate anyone? Why do you hate?
I hate Arsenal because they're down the road from me, mate.
Yeah, well, I hate Palace because they were down the road from my dad. Years ago. Down the motorway from my dad. Why else? I don't know. You just kind of get bought into things. But the thing is that you get bought into it, and then you start having interactions with fans where they start mocking. You go to games, and you kind of just get swept up in the whole thing. I think that's the rivalry. It kind of comes down to it. That's a lot of what football's about, right? It is about rivalries and things, even though they are stupid. It's kind of why a lot of us enjoy it.
The rivalries are not stupid, just that one is, mate.
It is very stupid, yeah. But then is it any more stupid than just being based off location? I don't know. There is some sense to it if you actually read up on the history of it. I still love that
two managers had a forward out in the 70s.
Yeah.
We're going to do a podcast on this one. Come on.
I just love that Brighton changed their whole identity just to compete with the Eagles.
Basically, two former Tottenham managers. One was managing Brighton, one was managing Crystal Palace. They had a falling out and this big rivalry.
Yep.
Yeah.
So why all we should fall? Arsenal, Liverpool. We've all. Oh, actually, no, we haven't. This is an interesting one. James, you've gone for 2-2. The rest of us have gone for a Liverpool win.
You skipped my team, mate.
Oh yeah. Well, that's an
he
easy
skipped
one.
his own as well, James. To be fair.
I deliberately did that.
That's true. He skipped both my teams.
I deliberately did that because we're gonna come back to it. Okay. As to Arsenal, Liverpool, so I don't lose face now. 2-2. 4 goals.
Yeah, I think. I think, again, kind of spoiling our podcast tomorrow. I think Martinelli and Saka can give Liverpool the sort of problems that they normally get away with, because obviously they're brave in terms of the high line and stuff, and it's credit to them. But I think certain things with Martinelli we saw against Man City back on New Year's Day and Saka makes me think, yeah, do you know what? They'll potentially give Liverpool some trouble. I obviously hope I'm wrong. I hope they get stuffed. But actually, no, I think they'll give Liverpool a proper game on Wednesday.
Suj, disagree? Easy-ish Liverpool win?
Yeah, just their firepower. They can just overpower any team, and I think they will against Arsenal.
Okay,
so Arsenal are in a much better confidence place since the semi-final they had with them. Much better place.
And next on the list, and don't believe James's lies, is our two teams, James. Brighton versus Spurs. We've all gone for a 2-1, except for you, who's gone for a 1-1.
Yeah, and
very interesting.
There's a reason behind that. Suj, do you want to tell him what it is?
Yeah, if 1-0 to Wolves is the Wolves score, 1-1 in any Brighton game is what we call the Brighton score.
and every time I go for 1-1, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So I know if I back us to win, it's finishing 1-1, mate. So I'm going for the old reverse here. No, I actually think
we probably win 2-1 now.
People will think, you're backing your team to win at Man United, but you're not backing your team to win at Brighton. It doesn't make sense. I don't know the Webster situation, but actually I think if Webster's back fit, it's a problem for us. Also factor in the well-known Tottenham statistic at the moment in terms of we need 5 days rest between games. This is only 4 days rest between the games. And I think stylistically, in terms of Tottenham drawing United on and springing on them, Tottenham will not find that as easy against Brighton, because actually arguably Brighton will retain the ball better.
Yeah.
And I actually think it's a difficult, tricky game for us.
I think it's going to be a really good game, though. I think, Potter's an interesting one because these are we've had an all right run of games and haven't been getting points in them. And now we're playing two sides in obviously amazing form. So do we just completely capitulate in these games as well? Or is this the kind of... We've done quite well in the bigger games this season. We've matched City for the second half. We were too many goals down before then. We've matched Liverpool, came back from 2-0 down to get a 2-2. I kind of actually feel like we need these games to kind of get us going a little bit. So I'm not too hopeful about points, but I think performances should improve.
No, I actually think these are good fixtures for you in terms of there's nothing to lose. Expectation will be really low at the moment. The kind of hopes for European qualification have faded. Actually, going into games against fellow mid-table teams like Southampton and stuff actually probably wouldn't suit you at the moment. Exactly. I think it's possibly beneficial. We all know who the highest scoring player is going to be in this game week anyway, don't we?
Pascal Gross, according to the stats.
Leandro Trossard, mate.
I don't think so, somehow. Final game then, Everton-Newcastle. James and Mark again going for Newcastle win and the same result, 2-1. See what I mean? You predicted so many results the same. Suj with a 1-1 and I've gone for a 2-1 Everton win. I don't really know why I've gone for an Everton win here. It's more of a gut feeling than anything to back it up. I just think Everton aren't going to get relegated, even though I kind of want them to. But if they draw against Wolves and lose to Newcastle, they're probably going to get relegated.
I think the major difference between, and again, kind of backing Everton to beat Wolves but not beat Newcastle, is in terms of Newcastle's pace. If St. Maximin is available, and obviously what Tottenham did to them Monday night is very different to anything Wolves can offer, obviously now that Adama Traore is gone. So that's why I think Newcastle will win next week against Everton.
Yep. Very good. Much better analysis than my gut feel. I've got a captain matrix here, but I must admit I messed up a little bit because I didn't update it after Spurs' fantastic performance against Everton. So the Spurs boys, Kane and Son, are a little bit off. But I kept it anyway just because it covers the main captain options for this week. So we've got Mane, Jota, Robertson, Salah, Son, Kane, Trent, Saka, Lacazette, Martinelli, and then if you're really desperate for a differential, St. Maximan and Calvert-Lewin. I should have put Trossard in there. Sorry. Would you agree though that it's between? I'll come to you, Suj. Would you agree that it's between Kane and Salah though this week?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of people have been asking this week about what they should do with their triple captain. If they've still got the TC chip, and the advice generally is, whack it on Salah this week when he's got the double game week. If the advice for triple captainers is to put it on Salah, then the advice for the rest of us should surely be put it on Salah. Like, I don't think you should have a different captain if you're using a triple captain chip to not. And so if we're telling people all week, Salah's the best triple captain choice this week, then he's got to be, for me, the best captain choice as well. If you don't own Salah, then by all means, sure, Kane is. Firstly, who are you? And secondly, Kane is probably.
So this is BlackBox. No one hasn't got Salah.
Exactly that, right? So it's like I'm saying, fine. If you are one of the 1% of people, then sure, go Kane.
Actually, in fairness, that's not true, because I have actually seen some genuine, very good teams who are looking at free hitting this week. And currently are without him, and obviously 30 wouldn't need him, and are debating whether they want to get back to 31. So I think, and obviously those free hitters will have Mo Salah as well. I don't agree in terms of it's Salah or Kane this week. I just think it's Salah.
Really? You're that convinced? You wouldn't even consider putting on Kane then? For
the captaincy over Salah, no,
not
at all. Definitely Mo Salah, and I agree with what Suj said. I think if you've got the triple captaincy left, I would use it this week. Obviously, as long as you're not using anything else. The only option I can see to not do that is if you've used your bench boost, and you know you're not going to free hit in 36, you will land there naturally with something that you can go and back, be it a Reece James, a Cancelo, a Salah, or a Kane. There will be something that you can go and put your house on, but I don't think it'll be better than this. It'd definitely be my captain. And to be honest, I think Harry will score Saturday.
Yeah.
But I'd still definitely go Salah.
I think the thing is, I mean, they've got similarly good games on paper. Spurs have got United, which I think is a really good fixture at the moment, but I think, the Brighton game is obviously both. I think, United is arguably better than Arsenal away, but Liverpool do well against Arsenal. They do tend to score lots of goals against them. But Spurs are just, there's been good performances against Leeds and Everton, but you never really know what Spurs are going to turn up. I mean, they lost to Middlesbrough in the Cup only a few weeks ago. They lost to Burnley. They're playing teams that aren't going to sit back and frustrate, but it wouldn't be too surprising if Spurs drop points in those. I would be surprised if Liverpool drop points against the two teams they're playing.
Tottenham could easily go to Old Trafford and lose 1-2-0 at the weekend. Yeah. I think that's the difference, isn't it? If Liverpool lose like that at Arsenal, I think we'll be surprised.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference between the two, essentially. In terms of the results Tottenham had, Middlesbrough, Burnley, honestly, please do not underestimate this gap between the days. It's such a big deal at the moment. And I think that should be fine for a Saturday, and Wednesday will be more of a problem. But it's generally not going to be a problem for Tottenham for the rest of the season, other than the one game to rearrange with Arsenal. That's it.
Yeah. So the games in the double are within that window where it's a problem. For Spurs.
For Tottenham,
yeah.
Saturday's okay because it's 5-day break. It's basically 4 days or less. Tottenham are in trouble, whoever they play, basically, because it just works them too hard. Obviously, it's 4 days and a couple of hours. United to Brighton, so I don't know.
That's what I mean. So does that count? Does that fall into it? I'm taking that. Okay, let's talk about our teams for the week. This is the final bit of the pod. Thanks everyone for sticking with us for all this. We're at 2 hours 21. This is now officially the longest black box we've ever done. So
we won't be back, will we?
Nice.
We're back anytime. I know Mark is genuinely really jealous that you two have been on, because he's a massive fan of FPL Planet. So we'll have to get
mate, where's that swear box?
Never gets old. Never gets old.
I think we've done it right, James. I don't think I've dropped any swear words. Just
I think I'm the only one to have sworn
you are.
so far. Yeah,
I'm really tempted to go now. I've got to be honest.
I've got a bleeper ready just in case you decide.
Not for me. You'd be pressing it a lot, mate.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I probably would be. Your team then, James, this is how you're set up. So you've got De Gea in goal, Trent, Rudiger, Tierney and Cancelo, Salah, Fraser, Rafinha, the mighty Trossard, Broya, and then Harry Kane up top. On your bench, Foster, Weghorst, Cody and Ramsey. What's your plans? What's your thinking?
Definitely Andy Robertson, I think. Almost definitely. But look, there's a couple of days to get through in terms of injury news and stuff. The idea is to go, I've got about 3.3, I think, in the bank. So the idea is actually to go Cody to Robertson. If I'm obviously free hitting in game week 30, I've basically
feels like quite a big upgrade.
I've got no purpose for Cody. I'm never going to pick him ahead of any of the rest of that back line, am I? And I'm not even going to pick him over the likes of Breuer or Weghorst.
5 at the back.
Fixtures. So that's the way I'm going to go short term, yeah. So Cody to Robertson, and then what I've been debating, De Gea to the keeper. But there's a couple of alternatives I'm looking at possibly, which includes Cancelo to Robertson instead. Been in your mate Trossard, probably for Kulusevski. Sod it. I'd go with my mate the Ginger.
I will put money on it that there is no way you will go into next game without Kulusevski.
How much you want to bet? Because literally we just have this bet now and I won't do it. I don't care
well,
enough
I know.
about FPL. I'll take your money, mate.
Suj, what's like? How much does James value money? What's like the minimum I can get away with?
I'll take your money. Pay for my ticket at Brighton next week. I need the cash.
Yeah, I don't think Kula's particularly high on James's list. Truth be told, just because of the conversations we've had, it's not really a priority.
What did I say to you on Monday? Yeah, watch him tonight and watch how everyone will want him afterwards, and that's exactly what's happened.
There is, you will do, if you've got 3 million in the bank and you've got Trossard, there is absolutely no way that you won't do Trossard to Kulu, because
I can
or Saka.
even.
Well, I mean, you can do Saka, right?
Well, I can even manipulate it. That do you know what? I'll check what money I've got in the bank. But I was looking. There's a way I can do it for a -8. Go Trossard to Son.
Okay.
I can.
Do you reckon he's that much worth?
So I think the one I looked at was doing it, and this is going to make everybody laugh. Was going Trossard to Son, Cancelo to Doherty, and then changing the keeper. But I could do that in just the 2 moves: Cancelo to Doherty, and Trossard to Son.
Okay, interesting. The bet's void if you get Son.
Well, you haven't put the price on it. Just tell me how much, and I won't buy him.
I'll give you £3.
I might buy him.
If I made it, what if I get a pint the next time we meet?
I think honestly,
like £7 in London.
I know we've joked about Trossard a lot, right? So he scored at Anfield early in the season. He scored the winning goal in the fixture against Tottenham last season. I'm pretty sure he won the penalty at home to Liverpool last season as well. So he has got actually a little bit of a historical against the two clubs. I'm not convinced that Kulusevski or Saka score 5 or more than Trossard in this coming game week and game week 31.
Put it this way,
I might stick it through.
I would be surprised if Trossard scored 5 points across those 2 games. Across those 3 games.
I probably don't really disagree with you, mate. But I know what happens. I know what happens if I take him out, and especially I'm taking him out against my team as well, right? So
I mean, I would say I have absorbed every single thing you've said about Spurs on this pod, and I will be using that to make my decisions. The one thing I can offer back in return is my own opinion on Brighton, and £3, and it is: do not stick with Trossard. It's not worth it. He's not good enough as an FPL pick. Brighton are in bad form. The double's horrible. Like there's so many better players that you could have. You could have Saka, you could have Kulu.
Do you know how many teams I've seen in the years have been in bad form and then Tottenham have rocked up?
Fair point. I would sell. You can do what you want. I'm just saying. He would be a.
I'm going to think about it. Look, would I rather have Kulusevski or Saka there than Trossard? I mean, obviously that goes without saying. Because of the 31 fixture and the way I'm playing it, I'm not certain it's the right thing to do.
Yep. Okay. Interesting. I won't say any more. It's your choice. Suj, this is your team.
I got the message.
Now, Suj, your team is so similar in a lot of ways to James's that I had to do a double take that I wasn't just
He's just
looking
got
at
less
James's
money in
team.
the bank because he don't make as many early transfers.
You got De Gea, Rudiger, Trent, Cancelo. That's the same. Trossard, Salah, Broja, Weghorst. So a lot of these players are the same. You've got Robertson in place, which I like a lot. You've got Mount as well.
Yep.
And you've got Son and Kulu.
Well, yeah. So to be clear, this is the team after transfers to get Robertson in for Kilman and Kulusevski in for Bowen for a -4. And I'm very tempted to. We talked earlier in the show about me not taking hits to do a -8, get rid of Trossard and get Saka in this week as well. So I may make 3 transfers this week.
I think they all pay off.
Yeah, it feels like it to me as well. So that's probably why I'll go down that route.
So what would your team be? You'd be playing De Gea, Rudiger, Trent, Cancelo, Robertson, Mount.
Yeah.
All 5
I'd be
in midfield and Broja.
Yeah.
So it'd be 4-5-1.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, 4-5-1. Yep. Gotcha.
I think that's where I'm looking at probably this week. Broja bench at home to Watford and Weghorst bench away to Brentford. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but...
Oh, you non-believers. I'm playing Broja this week. Always said he's standout pick. Oh, he's going to return so many points.
Would you start Broja over Trossard?
Yes. Would I start Broja over Trossard? I don't think there's a lot in it between them. If I'm being honest, I'd probably play the doubler.
Look how many hits I've taken as. I don't want to take a -8.
Yeah, you've got to look at it in isolation, though. It's not about what you've done before. It's just about
That's what
the
I
week.
said.
Yeah, I know. I'm using your own
I
words
think you're
against
just
you.
taking the mickey out of me now.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
Mate.
Okay, so my team, I'm on a wild card. So my team's actually fairly interesting. Be good to get both your opinions on this. My team,
Me, it's shit. I know
this
that.
is my plan. I'll just rip it all apart then. Screw it. I've got an Everton player in there, so he's not far wrong. The team I've put together... It is not.
Imagine Pickford and Trossard are in there.
Oh, mate.
Imagine that. That'd be great. I've transferred them in on the side, though. The wildcard team I've gone for is Ramsdale, Trent Robertson, Doherty, Salasson, Rafinha, Saka, Gordon. In my Everton midfield. I mean, it's obviously going to be Gordon. Who else is it going to be? And then Kane and Broja up front. And then a pretty pathetic bench, considering what the bench boost to play, of Dubravka, Gelhardt, Thomas, and Amity. And basically, I've got 2 million in the bank, and that lets me do Gordon to Barnes for 30, and essentially get 9 out, and lets me be triple Leicester for 30 in the best fixture. So, okay, it's 2 Leicester defenders, but basically it's just for that 30 game where they're playing Brentford. I can't see Brentford scoring in that. They're not going to be playing Norwich every week. They're still poor. So, yeah, that's the plan. Thoughts?
Christian Eriksen on corners against Leicester.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I'm surprised by the 2 Leicester defensive.
Me too.
I mean, they've got lots of games coming up, and Thomas is 4.3, and Amity is 3.8. And I've got nothing else. If I upgrade either of them, I can't do the Gordon to Barnes move. So I'd have to downgrade someone else. So I could downgrade Saka to Martinelli, for example, and then that lets me upgrade Thomas
I think
and Amity.
with the 2 there you've got, if you want to go that way, I'd arguably look at like Ben Johnson at West Ham. He does play in 30 as well.
I did look at Ben Johnson, but I can't afford to do that because he's 0.1 more than Amity.
Amati, is he?
Oh, you already got him in set up because Amati went up last night as well, didn't he? I think
I did not get him in last night because he was nowhere near going up on the price rise site. And so I didn't even think I needed to. Schoolboy error.
Is Johnson 4 now then?
No, Johnson's 3.9. Amate's 3.8.
So you can get Johnson instead of Amati, right?
No, Johnson's more.
He's 0.1 more.
Amati's 3.9 now. No?
He's 3.8, I think, isn't he?
I think he's 3.9 now, mate. Have a look, it's your team.
Okay, would you go Johnson or... You think Johnson over...
I would not want to look at double Leicester defensively there. I mean, what is that setting up for in the future?
Well, they're double. Well, there many of their doubles.
They'll certainly have one in 33.
Norwich at home is one of the double games.
Factor in with these players you've got here, right? So you've had Pereira injured, Castagne injured. Centre-back, you've got Fofana's back. Unfortunately, the poor fella's got COVID and he's out, but he's potentially back for the weekend. Johnny Evans is also only a week or two away. By the time you actually really want them guys, and they might be useful in 30, I'm not even guaranteed either of them are starters. You got competition. I think probably Leicester's first choice if everyone's available. Probably Thomas probably is in it. Marty isn't.
I can't see
No way.
Justin being too much.
Unlike with Gelhardt, I feel like you.
Oh, that was going to be the key information I needed for my wildcard.
And
now
James
James is
Justin,
gone.
of course.
James?
Yeah, the problem you've got as with the Brentford game, Brentford get a penalty, that's as good as a goal. Tony doesn't miss them.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
doubling up the defence on
but
that.
if I'm getting Ben Johnson, then I'm playing him again away at Spurs. And I've got 3 Spurs players in that. So this is the other thing is that I'm going to be downgrading Robertson to James, presuming that he's going to be back before the end of the season. Because Chelsea have got all Rudiger. Because Chelsea have got so many good games coming up.
Yeah,
so that means I can do Robertson to, let's say, Rudiger, and then I can easily upgrade Marseille. It's purely for that 30 game, and Leicester have got a better game against Brentford than West Ham have got away at Spurs. That's the thinking.
Yeah, I do think that does make logical sense. I just think,
the bench is horrid. Don't get me wrong. The bench is horrid. I could improve it by downgrading Saka to Martinelli, which I am thinking of doing, but I probably won't. And just don't go with the strong 11. You back, James? Oh no.
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, hello. What have you done?
I'm here, but I'm having some issues, I think.
Hang on, let me move you around.
Yeah, we only pay the Wi-Fi up to 10:30. That might be the problem.
The meters run out. Okay, Mark's team. He's got Ramsdale, Trent, Tierney, Robertson, Son, Salah, Saka, Rafinha, Coutinho, Broya, and Sir Maximan. And then he's got triple Wolves on the bench with Jimenez, Saïs, and Kilman. Arguably a worse bench than mine with the triple Wolves. What do you reckon on this, Suj? It looks pretty strong to me. To be fair,
it's very solid. To be fair, it's the triple Wolves on the bench that I was not so keen on. Obviously, I think Jimenez now, whether or not he's going to get his place back, I do think Jimenez will get his place back eventually. But yeah, not so keen on that. But other than that, I think the starting 11 looking really solid.
Yep, agreed. He should go away. Coutinho's done really well for him. It was a good move.
Yeah.
I know the cams haven't gone. It's James has disappeared. Are you still there, James? That answers that one. just me and you, Suj, to see it off.
Yeah.
But that's why the cams aren't working because James has abandoned us. But we're nearly there now. Just a quick message on the ticker. So Arsenal are top, then it's Spurs first and second. So these are the teams you really want to be investing in. West Ham have still got a good run. Villa, Everton, Brentford, Burnley.
The home fixtures particularly for West Ham look tasty.
It's hard to know exactly who to invest in because obviously if Bowen's a bit of a doubt and Antonio looks off it, it's tricky, but it might be a case of keeping them if.
Yeah, I mean, if you fancy, Aaron Creswell's back on set pieces, and we're always a threat, regardless of who we're playing on set pieces. So, I'd actually be looking at maybe Aaron Creswell if the others are not available as an option.
Yep. And right down the bottom, you've got, these are the teams with the blanks. So you've got Everton and Palace. So Everton have got a load of games to play, but they've got 2 blanks in 33 and 30, and the same with Palace as well. Also City, they've got Palace and Burnley sandwiched between the blanks, which is obviously nice. And then they play Liverpool and they go to Wolves away. So they're right down the bottom too. A few final things before I let you go, Suj. James has just buggered off, so forget about it. He's had enough. North versus South. Are you playing in this?
Yes, indeed, for South, obviously.
Good.
As is James. Although I haven't played a lot of football recently. Recently being over the last 6 or 7 years. So I've told our manager David Munday to make sure I'm on the old bench warming, and I'll come on for a cameo at the end.
Lovely. Yeah, I'm playing as well. I'll be right back. It's me and Pras battling out, and we're both we filled out that spreadsheet, and we've both written Yeah, we're crap. We both will be benched, so that bodes well. If you are interested in that, though, you can buy tickets. All the money goes to Street Child United. It's being held on the 28th of May. There's a link in the description to the video. Check it out on YouTube as well. If you're listening on the audio version, you can find the link to that. It's in Birmingham at 2 p.m. Yeah, and Suj, James, and I will all be there as well. And yeah, we'll play football and then go out and have a few beers, I imagine.
For sure. Which
will be nice. I want to mention the Green Arrow charity as well, like I do every week, the FPL Challenge, set up by FPL Greece. Mark and I donate a £5 every time we get a Green Arrow, so we'll be hoping to donate a load of money to this before the end of the season. If you are interested in donating this, you can donate as little as 65p. You haven't got to do it as part of Green Arrow. You can donate money whenever you want. All this money goes to feeding starving people around the world. Although I have heard from FPL Greece that the money being raised at the moment is going to help with the Ukraine efforts. So again, this is kind of a really nice thing to get involved in, and the fact it links to FPL, you can donate when you have a good week, or you could switch it around, donate when you have a bad week, make yourself feel better as well. Although if Mark had done that, he would be bankrupt at this point, so it's probably best that he didn't. But definitely get involved in that. But Suj, that is it. I'm going to put this back to the intro. I'm going to sort our webcams out just for the final bit, just so we can say
can you hear
goodbye
me
properly. We can hear you, James.
Look at that.
Where have you been?
Say goodbye.
All I've literally heard for the last 3-4 minutes is blip, 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 blip. I'm going to struggle in a charity game. Blip, 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 blip.
Yeah, that's you haven't missed much then. Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Is your internet working now?
Yeah, it's playing up, but I'm in at the sec, I think.
We can't see you on Zoom. I'm just adding in
I had to come out of Zoom. You won't see me.
No, you're all right. You're just a black screen now. To be honest, anyone watching this is just
all show.
Yeah,
nice.
Anyone watching this is just watching for Suj anyway in his lovely.
I'll try and rejoin.
Dapper bow tie. Well, you got about 5 seconds before I say goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, he's back. He's messed up the bloody cameras again.
Sorry.
We should just stayed away, to be honest. Hang on, I think I can fix that. Hang on.
He asked her to pay another 50p, see if it gets to quarter two.
I'm gonna hang on. I mean, this is the content that people want. There we go. We're all back in the things. We can all say goodbye now. We've done 2 hours 38 minutes, which is the longest stream I've ever done in my life.
The longest, the best dressed black box ever. And,
We've got it all. Yeah. We've got it all. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. We will 100% do this again. We'll get Mark on. We do a 4-person. That'll probably be about a 5-hour stream if Mark's on here as well.
Good. Start at 5 p.m.
I've got a smoking jacket in the wardrobe that I haven't dusted out in a little while, mate. So
we'll
have to do it again.
We'll have to make more of an effort, James, I think, next time.
Yeah, I'll put some pants on next time.
Don't go that far, mate. Don't go that far. Guys, it's been amazing. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Everyone should check out Planet FPL pod if they haven't already. They're on YouTube. You've got Patreon as well with kind of exclusive podcasts to that. Genuinely some of the best content out there. Really enjoy listening to you two. So great to have you on here. But for now, I'll say goodbye and we'll catch up again soon.
Nice one. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.